are going to call the May City of Birchwood Village Council meeting to order. All our council members are present this evening, as well as our city clerk, Alan Cantrud. Public forum. I'd like to open the public forum. Is anybody here to speak for that? Yes.
Martin Winter, 1 Oaks Lane. I don't know if this is on. But, it is? Yeah, okay. And again, my subject is the hockey and skating rinks. And I did mention at the last Parks meeting a couple of other additional things that I'm concerned about. One is I would like to level the pleasure skating rink. It's not entirely level right now. And I spoke with Chris Sorensen, and he said that he would be interested in assisting me. He's got a tractor, and we would use a laser level and also lines and his tractor to level the area so it would be much easier to flood. Right now, we have a high edge towards Lake Avenue, and it just takes a lot longer to flood when you have to build up that extra couple, 2 or 3 inches. So I think it would be a very good thing to do. I know there have been some statements that indicated, well, it wasn't possible because of the groundwater and the shifting of the earth there, but I don't think that's correct. Anyway, that's one thought. I have another thought, and that is the birch trees that were planted, I believe, during the time frame of Mary Wingfield. And they are, a number of them are pretty intrusive right now. And the Parks Committee did say they were going to go down there and look at them. And I would like to, go down there with some appropriate persons and discuss what we can see there. And we have one that's closest to the warming house, which is 3 trunks, and it's projecting up into the power line that is running between the light poles. And there are others that are protruding into the space used for the figure skating rink. And, I suppose we can cut them back. I'd like to see a few of them gone, especially the one that's closest to the warming house. And the park and that area is primary, first of all, for skating and not for landscaping. And, I'd say let's plant some trees somewhere else in a more appropriate location, but this one is really intrusive and it's getting worse. And anyway, I hope that we can coordinate on painting the center of the rink. I know that was mentioned tonight, and I'm going to get more information about the cost, but I think we could do it right, and we could get something that is going to help us out a lot with preventing the easy melting of the rink, especially in the center part, which is usually is always the thinnest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Barton. Next on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve?
I would like to add something to it. What is your committee called that was yesterday?
Connections.
Connections Committee. The Connections Committee, I went to that meeting yesterday regarding the 4th of July parade and wanted to discuss one of the recommendations from them.
Okay, so we'll put it as number 6.
Perfect.
Is that all right? Anything else? Anybody want to add? Okay. With that amendment, number 6, the Connections Committee update, could I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Kathy? Second?
Second.
Bridget? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, first up on city business is our planning and zoning interviews. So, Alan, would you like to ask the questions and introduce our candidates?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, we can certainly start a little early. These are scheduled for a beginning point of 7, and we've got 20 minutes for each of 3 candidates. Our first one, actually, Scott Sayre, is in the audience here, so he's ready to go if you want to do that. If you want to knock out the consent agenda before 7, you can do that. It's entirely up to you. I'd be happy to ask the questions. I put out the questions for everybody and a pad of paper and a pen to take notes with, and so it's up to you guys. You want to just plow into them?
Do you have a preference, Scott? Okay, why don't you come on up then? We'll get started.
And I'll let Scott, but as you can see, I've got these teed up on the agenda. So Scott Sayre is the principal at Sayre Consulting. He's our first, I guess you could say, RFP responder for tonight's interview session. And I'll let him do a brief introduction again, just to acquaint the room with his voice, and we'll get into the questions.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Scott Sayre. I'm with Sayre Consulting. My primary role is Director of Services, and we primarily focus a lot of our services on community planning, as well as administrative and interim type work for different communities throughout the state of Minnesota. We have a number of communities that we specifically do the planning for, similar to this role that has been sent out for RFP. So I'm glad to hopefully jump into those questions with Alan, and I appreciate the correspondence I've had up until this point. Obviously, it's a process for us to understand what the community is looking for, as well as what the council is looking for and Planning Commission. So we've had conversation around questions that we have for our planning purposes in order to apply for that RFP. So thank you, Alan, for that.
With that
I
in
am
mind.
ready with questions, Alan, yes.
And I'll say this about Scott as well as the other folks. I mean, granted, there are only 3, and one of them is your current provider of those services, but everyone's been very cordial, communicative, and so it's been a pleasure to work with all of them. But Scott, diving right in, because we do have, just to keep the process moving, that's why we're doing these in 20-minute blocks. It's your meeting, so if follow-ups end up taking us longer than I've prepared the other 2, we might run over. So this will actually help to have things a little bit, to start before 7, right? So Scott, the first question is, please explain your approach to planning and zoning generally and what your process looks like.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Mayor, members of council, I do have some notes that I'm going to reference as we go through this, and if I jot notes, just off to the side doing that, so just as an FYI. My approach and our approach just as an organization is more practical solution-based. So our focus is primarily around the application at hand. So from a planning and zoning perspective, we look at the regulatory needs, meaning what is the ordinance state, what are the policies of the community that is at focus, and then what are those state statutes that also replica what the city or community has adopted. So looking at that regulatory piece, but then also looking at a practical solution base. Landowners have rights, the community has different processes in place, there's different ordinance that protects different rural character, whatever that may be. Obviously, there's a large majority of the community that is within not only the watershed, but within the lake, just directly to the north of us here. So there's a lot of pieces that go through the process of planning and zoning for a smaller community such as this, which involves multiple stakeholders such as your engineering, your DNR, whether it's working on the lakefront, Public Works. I believe his name is Jim. I'm sure he's got a very busy time here, so incorporating him through that different process, and obviously involving staff with the 2 individuals, but then Alan as well through whichever process that may be that's at hand, whether it's a conditional use variance and just general zoning items. In addition to that, relationship is also big for me, understanding communication and transparency with not only the council, but then having a relationship with the staff members and being able to have open communication for staff to call us and try to determine a solution based on what those items are that are in front of us from a planning and zoning standpoint. As far as process, obviously the number one thing for us, and this is through experience, and Alan, I'm sure, can attest to this, as well as Ryan Councilmember Ryan on the Planning Commission, in regards to having complete applications in order to proceed and move forward. Lastly, an approach that I look at is also looking at the goals of the community, whether that's short-term, long-term, comprehensive plan, and those types of items that are set by previous stakeholders and council and community.
Very good. Second question to you, unless there's any quick questions from the council. Your interviews, I don't want to assume that everyone's ready to go, but if nothing else, we'll move on. Please describe your familiarity with planning and zoning software and what, if any, experience you have with Civics Plus. As a follow-up, how do you track that process and communicate with your applicants during the process?
Yes, thank you, Alan. As far as Civic Plus, just for straight transparency from the start, we haven't worked directly in Civic Plus. I understand the background of Civic Plus. I understand that there's communication tracking, information that's sent both between the individual that applied for that permit as well as tracking progress for just updates in general. But with that said, we've worked with a number of different both planning and zoning type related, whether that's GoGov, even financial ones with different Tyler Technologies to Banyan and others. We can talk about CRM tools all we want. Every community has a different process. Some have a tracking spreadsheet that they use, and it works just fine for them. We utilize a different in-house program that works specifically for us. What I'm getting to with that statement is simply that obviously if you're looking for a full understanding of the current program, Ben is going to be your person to do that. I'm sure he's worked in it for a number of years. Through transition, there's always going to be a change, but we adapt to that accordingly. And overall, those systems, as long as there's an understanding of what the goal is and how it's used and how the policy is within the community, we use that accordingly. So I'm not concerned with that challenge of onboarding that.
Do you track deadlines that the city has to meet?
Yes, so, and I just gonna, if it's okay, I'll just say council member with your first name, because I don't know how to pronounce everyone's last name. I apologize for that.
Ryan is fine.
So Ryan, just for clarity, are you looking at based on 1599 statute as far as when an application is submitted, or what's the specific?
So would you
question?
let us know if an application went past the deadline or we were closing in on the deadline? Would you track that sort of thing?
Yes, so typically how our process works, and to get to that second part of the question that Alan asked, was we have an internal process of when we receive an application. Now, it might be submitted to a community and there might be, it's Friday afternoon, we get it on a Monday or Tuesday, so we base it on the tracking of when we receive it. And then we do notify, obviously, if there's a potential deadline coming up, but we follow statute 1599 for our process under Chapter 462. So hopefully that gets to what you're looking for, Ryan. But if there's a deadline issue, yes, and that would be, from my perspective and how we typically work, is through our liaison process, whether that's directly through leadership within the city from a staffing level or planning commission.
What happens if you receive what you would deem an incomplete application? What does that do to the process?
So that would stop the process, and typically what we do is we identify that, most likely through email or, depending on the size of the application, through a letter. But there are X amount of days, 15 days under that statute that state if it's deemed incomplete, we have so long to review that that application prior to statute requirement, and then that time, or that ticking time clock, stops until we receive those remaining items for that application. And again, it more so comes down to just open communication and understanding the needs, as well as there's different levels depending on applications where a zoning administrator or a planner can require additional things based on the level of involvement of an application. So if more details on a survey, et cetera. So there's different things that can come into play with that need from a staffing level, but typically it's addressed.
So you put a hard stop on it if it's not complete?
Yes, we would do that via writing and through communication with staff. I usually tend to have a very open communication with, in this case, it would be engineering, Alan, and others involved that would need to be involved. Hopefully, Bridget, that answers your question.
It does.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it for questions on that one? And I'll just ask a follow-up, just as a process question. Would you send that information then to the city to communicate that with the applicant? Or is your setup such that you would be able to push out that correspondence from your office and, sort of shorten that communication line?
We have it set up in both options.
Okay.
It's more so what the perspective of council, planning commission,
You-
and
You're
staff.
capable of sending it out of your office?
Absolutely,
Very
yes.
good.
As long as there's transparency of, it's going to come from my email versus a city email, as long as there's transparency around it.
Right. I'm going to deputize my deputy clerk to ask her to receive the next contestant who's coming in the door, to ask them to wait outside. So, question number 3. And by the way, all of these folks got these questions a week ago, so they've had some time to cogitate a bit. Scott, as a small community, Birchwood tries to ensure that the applicants for permits and variances bear the cost rather than the residents at large. Please describe how you would approach planning and zoning to ensure that difficult or voluminous requests are borne financially by the applicants in such cases.
Yes. From my perspective, it's finding a balance. Planning and zoning typically can be also a level of service from just your general residents needing a service. But when it's a more specific application that maybe involves development, et cetera, there are levels where that cost needs to be passed on, or at least from an opinion of mine, it should be passed on because that is that direct impact of the individual. I understand that. Now, from an application standpoint, I was doing some research. I understand your fee schedule, which I reviewed more so from a conditional use and variance. Obviously, anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 is that fee. So I assume that that is built into the process and an hourly breakdown of what is expected from both city staff, and I'm sure that includes your engineering, your legal, as well as planning, and maybe Teresa and others that have responsibility within city offices. But from standpoint and bearing that weight, it can sometimes depend on the application and the request, but if it's individually driven for an individual property owner, et cetera, I think that should be passed on to that individual applicant. Now, I understand there's processes in place that maybe there's so much time that's involved, but then if there's additional time because there's more questions, there's more time needed for requesting additional information based on the application being complete or incomplete. I think there should be a tracking mechanism and identify those ways to and pass that on, or at least be reviewed from a staffing standpoint and a planning commission standpoint. I'm going to read the second part of that question, Alan, because that was the first. So from an approach for planning and zoning to ensure the difficult and voluminous requests, again, I'll say this and just, it's going to be dependent on the application. Now, if there's a big variance request that's specific to a lakeshore, from my experiences, it really depends on how many stakeholders are involved. And what that may mean is there a development review team to start that process? Is there other entities that are involved? Is the watershed involved? Is there, obviously the DNR and hydrologist is involved and things like that. So based on that, I feel the applicant should bear those costs. But in addition, if there are general questions that are handled by general community residents and just asking questions about a permit process, et cetera, and maybe starting that process, then that technically is a public service request from my experience and what we've seen in other communities.
Would it be something like where we would offer people some amount of planner time at no cost, and then when they requests got above that level, we would kind of push them onto their own nickel? Is that the sort of thing that you've seen in other communities and you would be willing to work with?
Yes, Ryan, it is, and we've done that in other communities as well. So really, it comes down to a application fee, and then if there's additional fees, now the fee schedule for the city, there isn't administrative fees, but based on review, there's a pass-through cost, for lack of better terms, that we typically will work with, that the city will pass through.
Is it possible to give a resident an estimate of, in all likelihood, what it would cost them at the beginning?
So I've been both in private and public sector. Private sector, absolutely. You can have a breakdown of cost of a project, et cetera. But from a public standpoint, there's multiple layers, and those layers can involve public hearing, public comment, different research of ordinances, different research of statutes, multiple people involved with all the different entities within the entity. So generally, yes, you can have a general understanding, but that should be built in your fee schedule based on that cost of that application. If there are different layers within that application that require additional work, then there should be a pass-through process that is established by the city through a fee schedule. That's typically how I experience that.
Okay.
Are you pretty good at notifying residents when they have reached said amount that is already allotted?
Time's up.
Free has stopped, it's now pay time.
Nothing's free.
Oh,
No free lunch here.
When the billing starts.
Yeah, when the billing starts.
So typically, yes. Now, I still have that public servant piece in me, so I try to be transparent that way. But as far as, I mean, if there's a large project and there's an identified process within the city that we are accustomed to, then absolutely, yes. If we track that, we track our process for invoicing very detailed, because we either, whether it's through a retainer or through an hourly, we track everything accordingly, because then we actually have matrix so we can follow and understand where we're spending time on community planning versus other services. So therefore, yes, in a long roundabout way.
we just don't want people to be surprised when they get an invoice, I guess.
And maybe for clarity, and I can ask this after Alan, but I'm assuming that there's a permit fee, but then there's also additional invoicing that takes place after or throughout the project, I would assume.
I mean, to me, the way this works is we charge people an escrow, and they should be prepared to basically pay the escrow in fees. And then as soon as they go above the escrow, we should be letting them know. And so that's a reasonable way to do it. If people want to get more calibrated estimates, then they should ask for that, but then that puts the burden on them a little bit. So I think that escrow kind of creates a limit, and then if people are going over that, then we should be letting them know, and they should be putting in more upfront so that there are no beyond, oh, I didn't realize I used up all my escrow, which is possible. There's kind of a limit there, so.
Yeah, and keeping the transparency high. Sorry, did someone want to say something?
I was going to say, can't we maybe even in our information that we give to people, say, this is what the escrow is, and these are the things that could make it become more expensive, so that they understand if you're going to, 30 different places, I'm exaggerating, to get information. That's going to make it more expensive, possibly.
The review is longer. That's probably beyond the scope of the interview process.
Right, but something that we could do from a city standpoint.
Right, but right now, what we do is we collect a fee and an escrow.
Yep.
And so one is designed for something and the other is designed for something else. But let me take a stab at the question, which would simply be, if you're selected, would you be willing to work with the city? Because this is something that we struggle with greatly. And so, because it's a small community, and as you can tell from the lake and from what people want to put next to the lake, it can be very complex, because they might be asking for the moon and the stars, and that takes all of that review time, and it's just making it equitable for the residents. And so are you in a position, and have you seen this before, to help the city guide us basically in some policies that would help us accomplish that?
Absolutely, Ellen and council,
That's the real question tonight, is can you do that?
Right.
we're very based around
agree.
process
Right.
and efficiency, so a lot of our services are built around process.
Anything else on that? All right. You're on to number 4, Scott.
Right.
Inevitably, an applicant, speaking of what comes next, right? Inevitably, an applicant is going to want something from the city code that is not allowed essentially or would require dramatic variance to accomplish. How would you handle the conflict between the applicant and yourself / your office as the city planner? In other words, when do you become an advocate for what the person wants versus the protector of what the city's trying to control?
So this goes back to my initial conversation from the first question, is just focusing on solution-based, but also focusing on regulatory efforts of the community. I am a representative of the community or the city in those situations, and I directly reflect code and policy. Now, I understand, again, it goes back to landowner rights and what they're looking to do, but being practical is very important in this role, I feel. Also, just being able to provide the guidelines of where the ordinance states specifically the can and can'ts, right? So where is from a general permitting standpoint, this is what is allowable based on that specific application. If it goes beyond that, what are the different options? Is it a conditional use type application? Is it then a variance, looking at those findings of facts of variances and what truly is allowable under state statute, but also what also has been precedent in the past, and just based on overall location of the community as well. Again, if it's a lakefront versus a non-riparian lot, I mean, there's different things that the ordinance will be specifically requiring or not requiring. Where I like to kind of start that process, and again, I think it goes back to the last question of looking at ways of being a public servant, I think it's important also to start with some type of a development review and pulling in the correct people to start asking and answering some of those questions the applicant may have, so it helps clean up that process. But then, to me, it also eliminates the need for back and forth, for lack of better terms, and hopefully it identifies those key items that are needed. Ordinance can state all at once in regards to process, et cetera, but people always have questions. They'll always try to challenge things, in my experience, as well as just having that relationship so that there's some comfort through the process as well is something that we often see. So from a conflict standpoint, mediation is in my background in a way, so there's always that level of angry situation or conflict because the city has all these rules, et cetera, but we navigate through that, and by doing that is being transparent with staff, stakeholders, as well as bringing it to the planning commission. I'm a big believer on, yes, this is the situation, but there's a planning commission for a reason, there's a council for a reason, and they're the decision makers. So bringing it back to that based on the level of need, and again, having transparency through that process. But mitigating, staying calm, that's my approach, obviously, to conflict.
Great. Very good. Any follow-ups on that one, guys? Thank you. And finally, and just because this is the final question, and I'll throw it out there for the benefit of the audience, these questions were a combination of effort from the council and from staff, especially a couple of them from our deputy clerk who sees these things come in. And so this is sort of a global series of questions here. This is one of them that came out of the staff side. Birchwood's code may not be entirely clear, and when confronted with a dilemma in that way, what is your process to clarify the code to enable you to move forward applying it to an application?
So, and is it Therese? Therese. So typically it's start that conversation. So if there's questions at an ordinance level or at a code level that Therese might field at the office, I am fully open to the fact of, hey, let's just set up a phone call, let's set up a Teams meeting, whatever that may be, and let's talk through some of those questions. But in addition to that, understanding, okay, where there's clarity in the code, but then if there's questions to it, again, it's being collaborative and pulling together as a group and trying to understand what that definition is, how we come to that definition, what past precedent has been, as well as I always reflect back to state statute on basics around when it comes to 462. So looking at that and Alan, I think you can probably tell by now, I typically will give you a call if I have anything in question. So,
As a follow-up, before you finish your answer, of course, because it's only fair if I cut you off, where do you see the planning commission in interpreting a city's code?
Planning Commission is an established body that is specifically based around land use ordinance and those types of related use. So there should be an understanding from a Planning Commission. Now, there's a review stance and a planner role level to provide information and recommendations based on staff findings, but from a collaborative and transparent effort, I truly believe the Planning Commission should have that involvement of interpretation of code, or at least have a general understanding of it. And I understand that there are new members that come on and it takes time to learn that, but there's also experienced members that help through that process. So having an understanding, I think, is very important based on the comprehensive plan of the community, the goals of the community, and that role as it's defined within policy.
Sure. And they're citizens and largely not professionals. And so are you comfortable pushing back against what would be considered an unreasonable interpretation of the code based on your experience as the professional in the room?
Yes, I am comfortable because I've been in those experiences before, and I understand that at the end of the day, the Planning Commission still makes that recommendation, but as far as from a staffing level directly related to ordinance, or whatever that specific subject may be, I will clearly identify that, whether that's through verbal or a staff memo, so it's documented appropriately, and again, communicating with staff.
Council?
As you've looked at our code, were there things that you would identify as an opportunity to be more clear, to be more complete? Or as you do the work for the city and you come across those codes that have opportunity, would you raise those?
Bridget, we do a fair amount of work in amendments through ordinance. Typically in land use, it's more the common thing. But from a perspective of just ordinance and how it's laid out, I think it's very well organized. Credit to who's put that online and done so. I think there could be more understanding, and maybe it's just lack of understanding how the website works from my perspective, but understanding.
We get
Working on it, man.
I don't want to just be
Thanks,
blunt. But understanding the different zoning districts was hard for me to understand. So I understand the basics was in there as far as setbacks and things like that, but my understanding with being more of a mature community where there's not a lot of open space to develop or anything like that, it's more redevelopment based. A lot of that is more so going to be focused on a higher level of application, just because things change. You look at a residential structure 30 years ago versus now, and square footage and things like that, things change. And it doesn't always align with ordinance, but there's also area of understanding within that ordinance to help meet the needs of the community as well. So steering back, the ordinance is very easy to follow. Some can just be combined, and they're all over the place with different sections and chapters and titles where these specific chapters are very clear. So my answer to that, Bridget, would be more so whoever you select, if that would be me, understanding what's currently there is always the most important step for me first, and then looking at areas that if there's question or how we can better understand from our perspective because of what we see and what the council may have questions or planning commission has questions on, then we would adjust through discussion on potential amendments.
Good, we would expect that, so thank you.
Council, anything else?
I just have one more question. I'm curious, have you started to incorporate AI into your processes and into your business? And if so, how?
We have to an extent. I mean, you can easily start spending a lot of money on AI if that comes up in the right areas. But yes, we do more so from a second opinion. So we'll look at different users to see if, okay, like if we look at a specific amendment or a question based on a specific related application, we'll use it for that, but we don't, not using it a lot yet from a financial perspective. Because the reality is we need to reflect back on the ordinance. The ordinance is very specific, and it's based on those specific rules. So, yes, it might be helpful to utilize AI to help draft a memo for whatever report we're providing, but when it comes to the physical work, it's not implemented, Bridget, unfortunately, from a financial standpoint as well, because there's just a lot of questions of what that all entails for future as well, too.
Thanks.
Follow-ups, anyone? Then I'm going to say thank you on behalf of the group and the city for coming down from Piers to
Thank you.
present for us.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
We'll be in touch. I'm going to scoot out and grab our next
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
This Thursday at 10, we're meeting with Barron to go through sort of the initial templates for the website, if you want to go.
The quietest our meetings have ever been.
It's so nice to look out the windows and see green.
Yesterday, I was at the meeting and one of the individuals was talking about holding their birthday, a child's birthday party here and how lovely it was for that event and how lovely the
Nice.
kitchen was. Good job.
Thank you.
I'll have to go look.
Still have to do the faucet.
Overall, it's looking
Oh
significant.
boy, there's gotta be a pun there somewhere.
Fix the leaks.
We'll just keep the flow.
I'm gonna practice at my daughter's first.
Oh, you're gonna practice doing the plumbing there?
Practice plumbing.
We undid all the plumbing today,
Oh.
which is fine.
Mhm.
How bad can reconnecting be?
If you do
I've
it
done it
right, it's
before.
great.
I've done it before. It's not.
As long as you're not doing the part that's in the walls, it's all fixable.
I tried
Well,
to,
we are in the walls.
tried to burn the house down once, but that
Yeah, you
was,
shouldn't
Sounds
do
like a
that.
bad idea.
Were you by any chance
Doing
using a heat
plumbing would be
gun?
hard.
those are the propane torch.
Yeah, same,
Oh.
yep.
Miss Lund and her compatriot John apparently is en route. Might have gotten lost, did you say? He went to the wrong place. Wrong place, all right.
The other Birchwood?
The other Birchwood. Birchwood, Missouri,
There's a Birchwood, Wisconsin.
and there's Birchwood, New Jersey.
Oh.
And there's Wisconsin, that's true. I've driven through Birchwood, Wisconsin.
Well, and when you follow your phone, sometimes you just can't follow it completely. You have to really think again.
And everyone, this is Miss Sharon Lund from the Falls Agency.
Thank you.
Happy to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, hi.
I hate to say this, but no one was expecting you. So I put Al and I put
Yes.
Jack, what's,
Well, I'm-
Diane.
yes,
I
and
put
Jack,
them on
yes.
the agenda, so
Right, right. So I'm,
How do you spell your name?
L-U.
I'll just give you the card. John was the one, that if you saw from the materials, that's who submitted the response to the RFP. So that's another person in their office.
Right. And And maybe I'll give you a little explanation of that. Elwin and Diane were not able to be here tonight, so we went through everything in advance with your questions and prepared just some thoughts because the time is short, and I know that you have plenty of people to speak with. So I thought that I
We
would.
do have, obviously, the responses, so
Yes.
they've been given all of that, so
Yes, yes.
if you'd like to,
So I do have, we took the liberty, since they wouldn't be able to be here,
okay.
of just providing kind of our approach to those,
Thank you.
Thank
to those questions. And I thought maybe I would, since our time is tight.
you.
Short?
And,
All right. That's good, high level.
that way that I could just give you a little overview, and then, here you go. Here you go. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions. John is bringing a little financial summary. We did go back and look at some of your projects over 2025 and starting 26. So we did a little bit of an analysis to look at how you have been doing it and some thoughts about how we might be able to do it a little bit differently.
And if you look over your right shoulder, that might be John?
There he is,
Okay,
yes.
perfect timing. Well, if you'd like to give us just a elevator speech about the Falls Agency, and we will launch into the questions. You can introduce John when he comes in.
Okay, sounds good. We're the Falls Agency. We've been in business. We've been marketing and advertising and since 1982, so we've been in business a long time. And over the last few years, we've connected with Elwin Tinklenberg, who has been mayor of Blaine, and obviously, as you know, the Commissioner of Transportation. He's been very much in the public sector. And Diane, who would be our kind of day-to-day person, has worked with other cities of your size. And so we put together kind of a section of our agency that could pull together what we thought would be, for a city of your size, a good combination of experience and the ability to do the administrative kinds of things in a way that is efficient, and to bring, in looking at your questions, it looks like there is some question about economy and the way costs get out of hand sometimes, so we thought that we could provide some ways of putting parameters around costs, which is important at a time like this. And we provide the kind of infrastructure for that. And I'd like to introduce John Work as well, who is part of our group. So Elwin was very sorry to not be able to be here tonight, but we talked extensively about some of the issues you have with your city, and I think he and Diane have worked together on many kind of city and county issues. So we thought that by being proactive and sort of answering the questions in advance, we could give you a flavor of how we would approach the project that you have ahead. So just to give a brief overview of that, we took the 5 questions, and I thought I would just give you kind of a rapid fire idea of how we would be thinking about approaching them, and then take any questions that you might have. First of all, the first question was about the planning process. How would we approach that? And we listed here, basically, we have 7 kind of ways that we would be looking at that. The initiation and intake, which would be looking at the scope and putting together the objectives for that. Discovery and baseline assessment, which would be then looking at existing plans, financials, setting a strategy for some of the models, then looking at the analysis and scenario modeling, where we would look at what some of the costs would be, the impact analysis, and statutory alignment, how that fits. Next would be drafting a narrative architecture, and then going on to review and refinement, as well as presentations, adoption, and then implementation. And part of the idea would be establishing the parameters up front, trying to be as transparent as possible up front about costs between the applicant and what is happening with the city, so that there is understanding up front. And I think part of our team's ability is to be able to communicate up front what the parameters are, so there aren't surprises down the road. And then I think one of the things, as we were talking internally, is people tend to become friends of the applicant. And so then sometimes things get a little bit muddy at times. And so the idea is to keep something that's very straightforward and start that way in the beginning, so that everybody can be on the same page. In the area of, I think there was a question related to tracking and software, and our team is familiar with the one that you mentioned.
Yes, and Sharon, before we move on to the second
Sure.
question, which is the second question, so
Yes.
you're perfectly fine.
Yes.
But it's nice to have this laid out, so thank you for that. In terms of the planning process and your response, any questions from council about their approach to the planning process?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
No, if we're good, we'll move on. And the second question does ask about
Yes.
Civic Plus and about software and things of that nature. Go ahead.
Yes, and so basically our team is familiar with that particular one and with others. I think that if that is what you're using right now, that would be not a problem. If you are open to others that maybe are a little bit more, that one can be very expensive. And so they're conversant with it and open to it, but I think there are also some ideas about tying down and bringing efficiency to software and tracking as well.
Alternatives to what we have.
Yes, yes. And for number 3, I thought maybe, go ahead. Oh, yeah, so, sort of. Yeah.
Any questions about their approach to software and whatnot?
Could you address, I see in here it talks about statutory deadlines. Do you have a process in place that relates to, for example, variance 1599 deadlines, and how would you handle that if the city were pushing a limit there?
Well, normally, I probably wouldn't be the best person. I can get that from Elwin. I can get that back to you, but I wouldn't exactly have that myself. So I would have him provide that for you. But they have quite a bit of experience with those kinds of things, so I don't see that as being an issue.
And Ms. Lund, put another way, is that something that your team would normally track for your clients?
Yes.
And so the
Yes.
city wouldn't,
It wouldn't be an issue because we would be tracking it
Fair.
on an ongoing basis, and that would be part of,
so you would have the
Tracking.
triggers and the flags that would say, hey, we're hitting a deadline for completeness of an application or, God forbid, a 60-day deadline.
yeah. And the goal is to be proactive from the outset so that we wouldn't hopefully get into that situation.
There's no hopefully, either you do or you don't.
Yes, yes,
Is that a better way of asking that question?
yes,
Or a follow-up?
Okay.
thank you. Yeah.
Can,
mean,
can
look-
I, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, very quickly, the question is, if we're 50 days into a 60-day deadline, do you let somebody in the city know? And the right answer to that is yes, and I think that's your answer.
Of course, yes.
Thanks, go ahead, Bridget.
Can I go back to question number 1? So you say evaluate options using life cycle cost modeling, operational impact analysis, and statutory alignment, which sounds wonderful. But what is it exactly? What does that look like? What are you doing?
It kind of uses, it uses information that is available from the past and from other, if, for instance, we can look at other statutory examples that have been done in other places. And so it would be basically just combining what we can see, what we can bring to the table from your own past and from other areas that we can see, like from Met Council or from other cities of like size.
Okay, thanks.
And then for question number 3, I think you have a handout, John, that I was wondering if you could pass out. This is for you to read later, but this is just to give you a little example of the style of how we go about it. We did go back, and this is public record, and so we did go and look at the projects that you had for 25 and 26 so far. And so this is for you to digest later, obviously. But the basic synopsis is that you have recovered about 42 to 50% of the costs for, and so what we would be looking at is making recommendations to you to find ways to recover more like 70 to 90% of your costs. And part of it would be through communication, through what we're talking about is the planning process so that applicants see along the way where things start to fall. And so the idea would be to change the trajectory of the costs. And that gives you an idea of how we would respond to question number 3. Question number 4 would be, and this, oh, go ahead.
So you hit the high points in your handout, and they can digest the specifics later, but thank you for pulling that together. Council, questions on that one? That was, if you remember the actual question, it was the one about the small community and trying to make the applicants bear as much of the cost as possible, so.
Do you ever give an initial estimate about what it will cost?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, that's one, that would be one of the options is to be as transparent in the very beginning and to pull together what are the issues and what we think would be the costs. They're not always, things change along the way, but the idea is to start with something that everybody knows about and there are no surprises. I think that would be, if we were going to talk about an overall goal, it would be to avoid surprises for either side. And so do whatever upfront we can to make it clear what.
Would that be the proactive scoping of difficult requests?
Yes, exactly.
That's what that means, is telling people what they can expect in the process.
Yes, yes. And usually, when you start with that and then people start asking for something else, they'll remember that. And so you have established kind of a platform to work from and to respond in a more neutral way, I think.
Council, anything else on number 3? All All right, number 4 obviously talks about the code itself and what it allows and what it doesn't allow, and obviously you've got a handout, but if you want to hit the high points of that,
Right.
question 4.
Well, and it's kind of the same mindset, to start with looking at what is the code, what is the statutory code for the state, look outside, what is your own history, and then have a place to start, especially if there's going to be something that's somewhat contentious. We want people to know what you're starting from and what is the basis of the current code and how that came about, so that there is kind of a sense of how that works. And then there's a way, and as Diane and Elwin call it, it's a pathway, not a promise. So that, once we've established that, then, okay, what is it that you're looking at, and what is the possibility for making that happen, and what are the good sides, and what are the pros and cons for making that happen? And that way, the trust, I think the whole idea is that people should trust the process. And even if they are bearing the cost, they should feel like there's a fairness factor on both sides. And I think that the idea here would be to start with a basis and then approach what they may be looking for that is outside the code, and then look at what are the ways that either can be worked out or cannot be worked out. So it's meant to be very straightforward, communicating along the way. And again, that's where everything that we have in number 1, if we take all those steps, then we're not going to end up with surprises, and people will see that whatever decisions are being made, they are following what, in a wider way, not just the whimsy of the group that's right here. Not that that's not good, but you want to have a sense of weight behind what you make decisions about. Does that make sense?
It does to me, but those are the ones that has to make sense.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
Are there questions related to that?
All right.
Okay.
Moving on to the last question, which talks about, as you properly captioned, ambiguous or unclear code provisions, I guess is the
Yes,
word you
and
used.
it's kind of the same idea, that once we've established a framework, then there's a way of dealing with ambiguities. The other thing in talking with Elwin, that if we were to be working with you, one of the things we'd like to do early on is sit down and identify some of the areas that have been problems in the past with ambiguity, and then look at ways to tie those up so that we can be proactive about those too. And so that in itself helps, because if there's a rationale and a thought process for some of the things that you've run into in the past, then we can set the stage for what happens in the future as well. That's kind of a short way.
Well, they consider the questions that they want to ask. I'll ask one as it relates to planning commissions, because we do have one. And so how would you approach a discrepancy that if a planning commission basically said they wanted to do it this way, and your analysis said you have to do it a different way? How do you handle a conflict with your client?
With your
which is
own, yeah.
Also the planning commission.
I think the way we would do it is the same way, is to look at what are the areas. It's their choice in many ways, but to show here is what we're told by what is in the statutes. Here are some of the precedents, and here are the advantages of going forward with your choice, or here are the disadvantages. And then try to make it as nuanced as possible. So when they do make a decision, I mean, obviously, they're making the decision, but they're doing it with eyes wide open.
How do you handle it, I guess, if a planning commission or council try to make a decision or push through a vote that's contrary to statutory requirements? So where one of those bodies would try to do something, where cities have certain limited powers that exceeded those powers, how would you handle that?
Well, I think try to put everything on the table and identify when you are making this decision, here is what either you're opening a can of worms or you're doing this, but try to make it as clear as possible what the decision, what the ramifications of the decision are.
So would you advise in certain ways in that case?
Yes.
Okay, and how would you advise?
Well, we would try to make a case for what we feel would be the right direction. In the case of this body, are you saying that the city council doesn't necessarily have sway over the planning council, or?
No, I mean, just to make up a random example, let's say we wanted to pass an ordinance that six smoke detectors were required on every floor, for example. And the councils generally don't have authority to modify the building code. If we tried to pass a 6 smoke detector ordinance because we felt like 4 or 5 wasn't protective enough, would you, advise us against that?
Well, what we would probably do is look at, is that being done in other places?
Okay.
And where, and what is the reason for that? Is does it improve the possibilities of having fires more?
So you wouldn't take it into account whether the statute would let us modify that? Like state
Well, yeah,
statute?
we would
Okay.
take that into account, of course, yes, of course.
Thanks.
And maybe we would also advise at what kinds of,
That maybe we need 8.
well, or what kinds of response there might be as far as why people would be reacting or not. So to try to keep you from being in contentious situations.
Anything else, council? All right, well, with that in mind, Sharon, John, thanks for coming in, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you for inviting us.
My wife? What?
You miss her so much that you can't spend 2 hours with her.
She's that hard on me? She watches the meetings and critiques me. She's supposed to tell me to shut up when I don't. You should want that. You'll get over it.
You say Sharon's watching the meeting?
Sherry always watches the meetings, and, just about locked her out of the house.
I'll be rattling them off, so probably not. All right. Well, I've got them right here.
Good evening.
All right, council, Mr. Wickstrom is here as our third RFP responder. And the way this has been working, Ben, if I can call you that, is to just go through the questions that we've been asking everybody, and you got them last week, just as everyone else did. And so I'm not sure if we need much of an introduction other than to say that Ben is our current planner and is here to basically throw his hat in the ring as well. And because of that relationship, and everyone knows you, I'm just going to launch into the questions.
Okay.
And so the first one asks simply to explain your approach to planning and zoning generally and what your process actually looks like.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think collaborative is probably the most overused word in the English language right now, but I would say it's pretty close to that. I think a lot of planners have kind of lost sight of what the job is. It's sort of an advisory capacity. Certainly, there are a lot of black and white things. You got to check the boxes. You got to review certain things that need to meet ordinances and criteria. But sort of the big ticket items, the variances, the CUPs, things like that, even if you look at how state statutes are written, there's a lot of subjectivity there. It's, character of the neighborhood. Is it a reasonable use? Might it have a deleterious effect? Spirit and intent of the ordinance, things like that. So the position needs a lot of, I guess, collaboration with applicants, with people who are opposed, things like that. So I'm not one of those planners that is trying to stand in the way of people getting things done. I think you have to keep in mind that if you look at the history of city planning, L'Enfant in Washington, Olmsted in New York, they were landscape architects, and that was for a reason, because the intent, the goal was beautification of the city. And planning and zoning has certainly gotten more detailed than that, and there are laws in place. But you have to keep in mind that if someone has an eroding shoreline, I don't want to keep them from building a retaining wall to fix that. Let's figure out how they can do that to protect the health of the lake, do what's in the best interest of the applicant, and do what's in the best interest of the city. So that's my approach. Process in general is following those processes as best you can, and working with those applicants, working with the staff here, and coming up with the best solutions that are with the interests of the city at heart.
Very good. Council, questions, follow-up? No? All right. Mr. Rickstrom, please describe your familiarity with planning and zoning software and what, if any, experience you have with Civic Plus. As a follow-up, how do you track and process and communicate with the applicants?
Right. Okay, thank you. Civic Plus I haven't used before as software. I assume this is directed sort of at the permitting part of what we're looking at. I use MS4 in a couple of communities. I'm sure it's very similar. I know Civic Plus does a lot of things for a lot of departments and is used in general. MS4 is more of the permitting type use, but it's very user-friendly. It collects and tracks all the data, sends you email reminders, and it routes permits to the people it needs to, and all of that stuff. So I'm sure I could adjust to Civic Plus if I needed to. Excuse me. I think there was a job description floating around here a year or so ago, maybe for this purpose, this job or RFP. And one of my comments on that was that the consultant's position probably isn't the best to be the administrator of software like that. If that's something you desire, that can certainly be part of the job, and that's good, but it probably would require some in-office hours or dedicated hours at least to run that software elsewhere, just because Therese will tell you that she spends a lot of hours on the permitting part of it and whatever, and just in your best interest, you probably don't want to pay a consultant $100 or $150 or $200 an hour to be doing that part of the job. But if that's something you want, let's go, let's tackle it. We'll do that. It just would take sort of a refinement of the position and the expectations. So whatever software you use.
How do you and Therese work together then to share information so she can update residents?
Sure. Yep, Therese, she sends, to Marcus, to me, to Jack, the building inspector, permits, if that's what we're talking about, building type permits, or zoning permits to me and Marcus. And we respond timely. And then if she has follow-up questions, or if we've marked it as needing more information, she contacts the owners, and then it runs through her at all times. So, I mean, there are instances where I'm working, there's a right now, Darren and Amy DeYoung, I think just today applied for a conditional use permit, which is another matter, for a land disturbance activity. And I talked to Darren at length before, I emailed with Amy back and forth. So I get them ready for it, but once they submit the permit itself, it goes through Therese and is routed to whoever it needs to be. And I will say, I'll certainly, if Darren or Amy contacts me about the permit after it's been submitted, I'm not going to say, please ask Therese, and she'll get back to me. That's not how I operate, so.
Thanks.
And Ben, I'll just touch on the second half of the question, which asks, how do you track the process and communicate with the applicants when deadlines are being basically approached, we'll say?
Yeah.
Statutory deadlines and other hard stops in the process?
We're talking about maybe a variance application with
Let's just talk 1599. Let's just talk applications, deadlines, timelines, things of that nature.
that we have to, well, I don't know that a variance application, we've gotten toward the 60-day rule or needed an extension, and we've talked about, you and I have talked about, let's just right away say we're going to go over.
On this case, the question is, how do you approach that? This is about the Wickstrom process.
I'll use other cities in general that I work for, because here it's a little different. But I work for a township, which is small, sort of a skeleton staff, and they rely on me to track that stuff. So it's actually part of that MS4 permitting software. All those deadlines are entered as soon as they apply, and I get the reminder if it's coming up on that date. So then it's up to me to just tell the applicant, hey, we need to extend your application, or we need more review time. But you just got to make sure that you're communicating with them once you determine that an application is complete, so that clock starts, and then or not, or incomplete, and so they know that our review time has been extended. So it's just a matter of communicating, and if there's those reminders from this software program we're talking about, that's great.
All right. Follow-up, counsel?
Who currently is communicating to applicants now when we have deadlines approach? We're here
Who's
with the applicant.
I'm trying to think of an example that we've had.
Let's use this one.
Who's
Which
that
just
one?
came in. So,
Darren and Amy?
yeah.
Sure. I think I tell Therese that, yes, from a planning and zoning perspective, this is complete. Because it's a land disturbance activity, Marcus probably has a lot more stuff to look at it than I do. But he will do the same thing. He'll say, I've got what I need here to review. And then it's up to me to actually communicate with Marcus and say, hey, I got to be writing a staff report here. What's your comment letter or whatever? But if it gets to the fact where Darren and Amy are coming up on their 60 days, I would tell Therese, we need to extend this deadline. And I think Alan has written those letters in the past. I'm happy to do it if that's the case. But it's in all the other cities I work in, and in this one, it's up to that city staff, not the consultant, to do that. But if that's part of the job here that you would like me to do, I'm happy to track that.
All good, counsel? Yep. All right. On to number 3, as a small community, Birchwood tries to ensure that the applicants for permits and variances bear the cost rather than the residents at large. Please describe how you would approach planning and zoning to ensure that difficult or voluminous requests are borne financially by the applicant in such cases.
Yes. Well, I think your process now is, we're talking about difficult and voluminous, so those are those bigger applications. You have a flat fee for application and then an escrow as well. I don't know that those are necessarily accurate to what they should be. I think our variance, I just had to tell somebody it's $5,000 to apply plus a $5,000 escrow, which is a lot. and I think this CUP is $3,000 to apply plus a $3,500 escrow. That's why Amy DeYoung contacted me for part of it. But for me, I just keep track of my hours that I spend on those items. And then when Therese is ready to draw down the escrow, she asks me what my total hours are. The Gladowich one from a few months ago was a good example. They had had multiple variances. They had reapplied. I don't know if that was a new application or how that worked. But she had asked me, if I want to bill Gladowich, how many hours do you have in? And this was just a phone conversation. I said, well, I think if I look back at all of it, I have 32 hours over the long time, but there are more coming. Do you want to close it out, or how do you want to do that? So it's, whatever you tell me you need me to do. In other communities, I've done what's called pass-through hours. So if there's an application like that, I have to submit a monthly bill. And then on that, I track pass-through hours and say I spent 6 hours this month writing a staff report for Aaron and Damie DeYoung. And that then is billed by you to that applicant. It depends how you want to do it. I am on a flat fee structure, okay? I'm on the retainer. I'm at $1,600 a month, which is $19,200 per year. That's a good deal for you.
So Galadowiches have come in for 2 variance applications now. How many hours have you to date submitted to the city that were billed back to them?
Well, I don't have my hour log with me.
Thank you.
I would say probably 40. I've answered Teresa's question twice, one about 30 hours.
Do we have a record of how much we've actually billed back to applicants on?
I don't think the bill's gone out to the applicants yet.
For any variance?
I don't think so,
Gladowich?
because nothing's closed out. I did
Well,
ask
right.
that question, so
Yeah, I mean, this is a real, okay.
it hasn't
thanks.
happened yet, so,
But, I mean, they came in for their first variance like a year or more ago.
yep.
Well, it wouldn't be a bill to them. It's an escrow drawdown.
Well, the short answer anyway is that they haven't been billed yet for services. I'll just leave it at that. I just drove by the house, and obviously they're just digging out for the garage right now. So that's coming, but it hasn't happened yet.
Okay, so they finished their first variance application. And they finished their first variance application, and the
Correct.
variance was granted. And then the city retained their escrow?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
So as I was saying, my flat fee is total of $19,200 per year, which I believe is a good deal. If I were for a larger firm, someone with my experience would be charging you $200 to $250 an hour. So I think there's a level of service that your residents expect when they're dealing with the city. And if you would like me to change to hourly, or if more similar to how Bolton and Menk does it, that's certainly possible. But what I'm saying is if I'm emailing back and forth with some resident 3 or 4 times, and they would probably be upset if they got a bill from me or from the city through me for $100. There is a certain expectation that they can ask the city questions or they can work with them. But this question was about big and voluminous and difficult projects. Those are the bigger ones that have escrows.
What it really asks, Ben, is if you zoom out and it really asks about strategies, what are your ideas about making this equitable for a small city
Yeah.
that wants to provide this public service? If you're gonna have a zoning code, you better be ready to apply it, right? But there are those special needs and extra needs people, and what's your approach to making it equitable to the city so the rest of Birchwood isn't trying to pay for a variance that ultimately gets denied?
Sure. Yeah, the variance, the CUPs, things like that, you're doing it correctly. You have a pretty large escrow. Maybe that could be larger and the fee to apply could be smaller, and that's how you collect. You've already collected the escrow. They don't get as much of a return, or maybe they get nothing back, or they're billed extra. So you're doing that correctly for those big projects. There are ways you can, and maybe it's already been done, but you can attach a $50 planning and zoning review fee to building permits or to zoning permits or something like that. I don't know what those fees are. I think our zoning permits are $160 or something. So maybe that's already covered. But there are other ways to do it. It's just, there's a fine line between what is that time that they need spent on a project in order to expect a bill? Or is it just a city service that's provided to them? So happy to work with you on figuring that out. I know we've had discussions about that in the past, but I don't know what was ever implemented.
Sure. Any follow-up, council? All right, question 4, Ben. Inevitably, an applicant is going to want something that the city code does not allow or would require a dramatic variance to accomplish. How would you handle the conflict between the applicant and yourself or your office as the city planner?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think I'm good at not letting it get to the point of conflict. We've had a number of sort of contentious issues here. I've gotten to know Sue Reese and her family well. I've gotten to know Larry and Susie Mahoney well, Tony Nicholas well, and some others. Darren and Amy probably got an answer they didn't like from me before they applied for that, which was Amy actually asked, why should I apply for a CUP when I could apply for a zoning permit and then another zoning permit and then another because the land disturbance activity is because it's over a certain square footage, 4,000 square feet is the limit. And I answered, well, Amy, there's nothing in our ordinance that says you can't, but it would be circumventing sort of the intent of the ordinance. And if Marcus or I saw that, we would probably say, hold on, we need some more information here, and we would flag it and probably make you go through the process anyway. So I don't know what they decided on that. Boy, she could answer that. I swear I didn't plant her in the audience tonight, but if you want to ask her about that when she's up here, that's what.
This was not planned.
No, not at all. So I think I'm good at not letting it get to the point of conflict. In those other cases, if you ask them, even Susie Mahoney told me at the end of, if you remember that one, some of you do, it was an interpretation of the ordinance and an appeal and all that kind of stuff. She told me at the end, I appreciate your professionalism and your diligence in getting this figured out, even though they didn't agree with how it ended. So I learned that lesson. I worked at Lifetime Fitness in real estate development for a lot of years. And one of my jobs, besides the site planning, was the entitlements. And part of that was meeting with these neighborhood groups. And we had a project in Centennial, Colorado that we were going to build. And we had to have a neighborhood meeting. We asked the city staff there, could we use their city hall for that? And they said, well, that's not going to work. It only holds 250 people. So we had it in an auditorium at the high school, and there were about 1,000 people there with police behind us because half of those 1,000 were not happy or had questions. And we were there for a number of hours. Well, we ended up scheduling another meeting at their clubhouse with about 100 people in attendance, and we were there from 6 p.m. to midnight. We got everything figured out. When it came to the public hearing for the site plan review, the preliminary plat and all that stuff, we had 0 comments at the city meeting. So I think learning that lesson, working with people, addressing comments, addressing concerns, and always being communicative, that's how you handle something like that. And I think I'm good at that.
Ben, what kind of analysis do you do when you get a request for a variance? So you look at the code, I'm assuming, but do you look at sort of past decisions, other entities? I have no idea.
Yep. Good question. Thank you, Bridget. Past decisions is a slippery slope because each of these types of land use decisions needs to sort of be looked at independently. But yes, it's a code review and an application. But like I spoke about earlier, there's a lot of subjectivity in some of these things. So you do look at other examples and things you've done in the past or recommendations you've made in the past. But a lot of applicants will ask, what do you think my chances are? And I hesitate to answer that. What we have implemented lately, and is a great process, is at the planning commission level, potential applicants can come with a concept plan and get some feedback from the planning commission. And that's been helpful 3 or 4 different times, and we have another one coming in 2 weeks here, two weeks from now. They're coming before us for a potential variance application. So that actually, at that concept level, I try not to offer much other than a memo saying, here's what you're looking at, because otherwise it looks like I'm trying to influence a decision maybe. But for them to get that feedback when they can, that's been a valuable resource. So hope that answers your question. I can expound
thank
if you
you.
need. Thanks.
Any other follow-ups, council? All right, and finally, Ben, Birchwood code may not be entirely clear, and when confronted with a dilemma in that way, what is your process to clarify the code to enable you to move forward applying it to an application?
Sure, thank you. I just gave you sort of an example of that CUP, but let's go to another. There are certain things that are very black and white, okay? The maximum building height, which has come up twice in the last couple of months. That's not really an interpretation. What is an interpretation, maybe the way our code is written, is our average height of our that we allow for single-family homes. With our max height being 35 feet and our average being 30, it's kind of impossible to meet both of those, or to maybe approach one of them and not the other. How's that? But our interpretation of our height code, I don't want to get deep in the weeds here, but it just has language like measurements should be taken at equal intervals or something along that facade. Well, if you have a grade that goes for 80% of the wall and then it drops, if you take 3 measurements, it's going to be a lot different than if you take 10 measurements or 5 measurements. So there's people that try to look for ways around that, and it's my job to interpret that and like the term I've used twice tonight, spirit and intent of the ordinance. It's things like that I have to give my best interpretation, but if it comes down to it, need Alan's help, his interpretation. I have contacts that are land use attorneys I use regularly. One of them I ask questions.
Have you ever asked a land use attorney from outside of Birchwood a question about zoning in Birchwood?
Not about zoning in Birchwood, about interpretation of a
About,
state statute or something.
as it relates to Birchwood?
Just in general.
Okay.
What is their interpretation of a state statute? So, I think, using those resources, you always have the League of Minnesota Cities to ask that question, but I think we get to the bottom, as long as we're following the process, we're getting to the right place. Okay, I remember being at an APA conference in Duluth years ago and listening to a land use attorney from, I don't know if it was Kennedy and Graven or Campbell Knutson or something like that, one of the big shots. And they said, there's a reason why 90% of variance decisions could be challenged in court, but less than 1% are. It's because there's a lot of subjectivity in these decisions. And I'm sure you could find, court cases from 40 years ago that maybe you find conflict what your reasoning is, but as long as you're following the process and laying out those details, you're doing the right thing. Birchwood's a little unique in that we don't record our planning commission meetings. We have minutes, and Mike does a great job with those. It's impossible to catch everything, but the planning commission doesn't provide a recommendation resolution to the city council. Up until recently, I don't think the city council provided a resolution once they finished. It was more of an approval or denial letter. And then there's nothing for us to give to an applicant and say, okay, go record this at Washington County against your property. It's basically a piece of paper that goes in a file here. So it's a little different as far as legality and what we have as recordable proof, but I think we can get to that process where we're more, thorough in our answers, thorough in our process, and some recorded findings of all of these things. So, any questions?
I'll throw one out to you too, just because I threw it out to the other two applicants, and that is, what happens when you get into a question and answer session with the planning commission and you're actually in conflict with them, where they want to do something and your interpretation of either state law or the local zoning ordinance is in conflict with what they want to do?
If the planning commission and I are in conflict? If it's my interpretation of the ordinance, then I have to stick to my guns and say, no, this isn't lawful, this isn't legal. If it's something where they need an interpretation before they make a decision, then, you know, a legal interpretation, then I think we would be best served tabling the item or bringing it back and getting your advice, getting a land use attorney's advice to figure that out. But if it's just my interpretation, and I'm pretty certain that it's against state statute or local ordinance, then yeah, I have to stand up and not let them do what they want, I guess.
Council, any other follow-ups for Ben?
Ben, because you know our process so well, what would be the one thing that you'd like to see improved?
As it relates to like a variance application or something like that?
Yes,
Or the whole process?
both.
All of planning and zoning, or just a variance?
For instance, I guess.
Yeah, for the whole process. You know the whole process. What is the one thing that you would like to see changed to improve it?
That's a good question. Well, I would say we've taken steps in allowing these concept plan reviews because it helps applicants get feedback before they decide if it's worth going forward or what they need to modify in order to come forward. I think the best thing we've done is maybe start providing some of these findings in resolution form. Alan, I think the last one, maybe drafted that resolution, may not have been as comprehensive as we should be. I think Ryan's had some good ideas about how we can improve that process and how we can track that. But I think providing recordable proof, or at least proof in resolution form of our decision, makes it much less ambiguous of a decision, or people left saying, well, what happens now, or can I do this, or can I change that?
So we aren't doing that right now?
I think we're getting there. We haven't in the past.
Okay, thank you.
That is something we're working on, just because I believe it's important to leave a record. And so, for whatever reason, historically, that's not been the habit here, but it should be, for all the recordable reasons, and so it's something that does run with the land, and it's just an important historical mark. Fair? Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Ben. We'll be in touch, and unless there's any other follow-up questions, I think we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you all.
Council, would you like to take a 5-minute break?
That's probably a good idea.
Okay, 5-minute recess, Chris. We'll be back. right, we are now back in session. Thank you for your patience. Alan, did you want to wrap up the interview process?
Sure. Mayor and council, we are done with the applicants, and obviously all three of the RFP responders did reply, and you've gotten their input on the questions that we've asked them. I guess at this point in the deliberation, I'll call it, I would just ask each of you, since we only had 3 applicants, to just use a very simple scale of 1, 2, 3, just a rank voting, if you will, and send those to me, email them to me, and I will produce that sort of raw number. And so that way it gives you a sense of where they are in the ranking, and we can go from there. It'd be helpful to collect your comments, any observations that you have as well. But I think a raw score is really gonna sort of either make it very obvious or not. So that's a good place to start. Depending on what the attitude of the council is, we can have a workshop to discuss observations or just work off of those raw numbers. It's hard to say what to do next. But obviously, if you have someone that gets, 40 points and the other 2 get 2 points, so it'll be driven by what I see.
So there's no open meeting issue with sending votes to you by email?
Don't just send them to me.
Okay,
So,
okay, and then you'll put them into the agenda,
yes,
and then will
I
everybody?
will push it
find
back out, but there should be no communication between council. As tempting as that is, please don't call each other and say, how about that, Ben? Just please don't. So just to keep this, I mean, it's hard because we have one of the contestants who is actually your current contractor for the role. And so, like I said, I just as soon have it just be a raw impression. And like I said, the numbers, I'm not asking for a scale of 1 to 100. I'm just saying in your raw ranks, just to start the conversation, and we'll figure out what we should do next month, whether that's an agenda item to discuss it or not.
Okay,
Sounds good.
Fair?
yep, thank you.
All right, thanks. And you may move on to, well,
Wait, hold on, Alan, sorry. Is 1 the best? Like, 3 is the best,
Just
right?
do best, middle, worst. Use your words,
do I have
man.
to create all the rules here?
Yes, that's a
All
good
right.
question,
Yeah,
actually.
is 1 wait, was 1,
Is the score like golf?
On a point level, why don't we, instead of golf where it's the lowest score, why don't we say
the
your
highest?
favorite, your best choice gets 3 points?
got it.
Right, your second choice gets 2 and 1. So that way, the highest score wins.
Okay.
Fair?
See, that was a good question.
Because, yeah,
It was a great
I would have put them in 1, 2, 3 order, like, I'd have said 1, 2, 3.
We can do ranked choice that way too, but sometimes it's easier just to see the large number and say winner.
Okay.
Perfect.
Right, thank you.
All right, number 2 on our agenda is the city engineer's report. Marcus is not here this evening, but he did submit a report in your packet. Is there any discussion about the report?
That was fairly straightforward, and I did ask, and no one thought that Marcus should be here, so hopefully that is the case.
It's good to save a few $100 when we don't absolutely need them. I guess the remark I would make is I know I've just heard concerns from some residents, some of them might live near where I do, that scheduled road maintenance, like our road maintenance schedule, I know a lot of people looked at that, particularly around election time, and there were a lot of people who kind of looked and said, hey, I kind of look forward to my street being done in X year. And it was kind of pointed out to me that there are a bunch of people on there who, how do I put this? It looks like 2025 work that was scheduled wasn't done necessarily, and probably because we shuffled things around a little bit. I would like to just kind of make the point and make sure we focus on being inclusive with our roads, and maybe we need to communicate to people a little better. I don't necessarily think it's the case, but it does, some of the areas that have been done aren't necessarily as visible in the city as,
Right.
the freeway, the 2-lane freeway of Wildwood and Cedar, which we could probably both make one-ways and then raise the speed limit, but, I think it feels a little bit to some people like the roads plan isn't going forward, and I just want to make sure that we kind of understand that you know, it is, and,
Yeah, I think
so,
the Wildwood issue was with Excel as well. So that's,
yeah,
you know,
okay.
that just came to light. And so our discussion was, we go ahead and resurface Wildwood, and then Excel comes in and rips it back up to put, you know, to do their utility work. It's kind of pointless. So there's a lot of variables going into it. So we kind of have to be flexible with it.
And, but we are, just so we're clear, we are basically, we aren't just, was it Oak Ridge? Remind me what the street was that had the drainage problem?
Oak Ridge.
Oak Ridge. I get the Oaks confused and the Wilds confused. Was it Oak Ridge? I think we also need to be a little bit clear with people that we're not just pouring more money into Oak Ridge, but, and I don't know what happened, I was out of town, and, but that is kind of a separate branch of the main roads plan tree. And so, I don't need to talk too much longer, you've probably kind of got my point, but I do think just making sure people know that some of the tax increases they've seen are actually going toward improving the roads. You know, I spent 30 minutes getting my dog out of a pothole,
Yeah, no kidding.
you know, and I know it's gonna take some time. I guess that's kind of my 2 cents, but, I mean, it's not gonna happen all at once either, so.
Right, and to address what Marcus has put in the packet, you know, we talked a little bit at the last meeting about the difference between maintenance and improvements. And I think as a council and in meeting with residents, we need to have an open house when we go forward for next year's roads plan. If we choose to do the improvement path, then we have to look at assessments. And if we choose just to do maintenance, then we can do it out of our city budget. But there's been a lot of talk about doing curbing to control the water runoff, and that is an improvement. So if we're doing anything like that, then we have to look at assessments. So this is like a bigger issue,
Much bigger issue, yeah.
you know? It's complicated, but
Well,
yes, I agree that
I
we
think
need to have.
I think it was worth raising.
Yeah,
I don't think we're
right.
gonna resolve it all in the next 2
No.
minutes. I just think it's worth raising, and
Well,
this,
it sounds like you're hearing feedback from residents that we're not communicating very well, so maybe that's.
It does seem to me like there's some communication issue there, but
So
I
maybe we
also
just
think
figure
it's
something out.
not just communication, it's also a little bit of, I was promised this, and I don't see that I'm getting it. So I think we need to communicate probably just at this point that maybe things have changed a little bit. Maybe we need to put out a revised road plan. I think there was a lot of focus on it during the election campaign season.
We're a
That's
year
probably
behind.
less now.
Well,
We're a year behind, right, and that's part of it, yeah. So I don't think anybody's necessarily doing anything wrong. I'm just kind of raising something that I think we need to think about a little bit. That's all.
We can push out more thoughts in, you know.
Maybe we just
through the
take,
newsletters
you know,
and whatnot.
maybe we just take in one of the Friday newsletters and put in a little, hey, people have been asking about this, maybe that's all we do, because,
And sometimes, I mean, with the redux of the website, you're gonna have an opportunity to put some stuff out there to show people what your plans are. You know, it's hard because there's been sort of I'll just say a overall lack of investment. And so with an eye-watering number of water main breaks, you're digging stuff up all over the place. It just looks like everything needs attention all the time, all at once. And so maybe it does, but you can only
does.
fix things as
Yeah.
you go.
I mean, with the new website, I think that's gonna be a great opportunity to be able to push that information out to the city. And, I mean, especially for the roads thing, I think we should just look at a cadence of, like, official communication coming out from the city being like, here's the status of the road plan 2026.
And just show the homework, right? Explain the prioritization, because that's what people want. It sounds like that's what the question is why are you doing this here, there, and not here, there?
When
That's a
is-
fair question, because people want to know when their stuff's gonna get done.
when is my street gonna get done, and why wasn't it done in 2025 when it was scheduled? And I think if we just explain that, we'd be at least better off. So if I can help probably write something if we need to, but I also need to look through the roads plan and see what's changed. and
It
what's
would take
updated too.
all
I hate to-
inputs.
I don't like to just ask other people to do stuff, so.
We'll have a very short window of honeymoon with the new website to attract people to it. And so the more stuff we can get out there, so people are like, wow, this is here. I mean, it's a great time to do that. So, my thought.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Any-
Marcus didn't cover in his memo, but do we know when our, it's not called robotics anymore, but whatever that review is?
I'm gonna call it
I
robotics.
know, it should be, it's.
It's a good word, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. I can get that answer for you. I mean, it's not at the tip of my tongue, but I can certainly ask Marcus. He usually is pretty responsive on his phone. So if you want, I can get the answer before we're done tonight.
I don't necessarily need it before tonight, but before we decide which road, I know that was going to be a factor if the ranking of the roads still applies to what they were, we move forward with one way, but if we discover that one road is somehow crumbled in the meantime, we'd obviously be switching tactics as well, so that's important for that too.
Crumbled downstream and ruined.
Right,
our road.
and that was sort of, part of the discussion I had with Marcus about this year's work on the roads, is doing all the, discovering what's underneath the roads before we go forward and fix them again. So that is why we're doing
Sewer and everything
the
else.
sewer, the stormwater mapping, that, a whole drainage system, and the robotics again.
Yes,
So we're relying on data, and then we can adjust the roads plan
I
from
think
the
that'll be
data.
great information for the notice, whatever we decide to do.
Actually, I did put it out on a Thursday, two
I
weeks
saw
ago.
that it was in our little note, but as far as.
No,
like
and the Thursday announcements to the city.
For the city?
Uh-huh.
Perfect.
I did put that out there.
And some of these
Whole
are
schedule.
driven, the decisions are driven also by other entities. So when we discovered, right, because we were told that Excel was going to come through and do some upgrades, it obviously makes sense to hold off doing some projects and work with them, because then there's a cost share there that you wouldn't normally get while you're in there, and/or at least you don't do it first, and then they come through and then dig it up again. So,
Right. And they were starting on Wildwood, so we could have communicated that. You're absolutely right. All right, any other,
We're not perfect.
any other comments on Marcus's
All
report?
right. 80% of us aren't perfect.
Let's move on then to number 3, which is memo I put in there, consideration of reinstatement of the roads committee. And I don't know if you've read my little, my little note to you. Kind of, I'm going back and forth on this roads committee because I don't want it to be a waste of time for our residents, even though I've had a couple that said they would be interested if we would start one. And my reasoning is just that with our city, it's not complicated. And if we're doing all this research and data into our infrastructure already, we have all the data. And to make decisions based off of that, it's pretty easy. And if you want to gather a group of people, there's only a set amount of money. The data will show us what exactly needs to be done in what order. I mean, I don't know how
The
a
funds are
committee would,
going to state how much of it we can do at a time too, so.
right, and, I mean, but I don't care if you guys if you're interested in that, that's fine with me as well.
I think if we get some sort of groundbreaking information from some of the research that we gather, maybe, but otherwise I don't think it makes sense to start up currently. That's my own personal opinion though, but
Yeah, I agree with Kathy on that one.
What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I agree with those things. The thing I would add is I think task forces and committees are great where there's a lot of subjectivity. And I
Right.
think the Parks Committee has done a great job figuring out, like Ty Schmidt, where that was kind of an open field, and now it's a different open field. But the open field for the Roads Committee is not nearly as open, I think, as you point out here. If all we're gonna do is second guess our engineering, which I'm a little concerned about, I think there might be better avenues. I'd be happy to come up with a roundtable discussion on roads with the council or something
Yeah.
as an alternative. I guess, and to me, the difference is, am I joining this committee to have more influence, so I get what I want, or am I doing it for what's best, to figure out for what's best for the city? And actually, if it's the latter, I'm fine with that. We need to make sure that people are in that boat. If it's, I want to make sure that since I'm moving out in 3 years, that my taxes are as low as possible, that's a different story. And so, I don't know, that's my 2 cents. I guess I have a long-winded way of agreeing.
No, I appreciate that.
So I'll be the counter on this. I think that it would be really helpful to have a roads committee. One, I'm not sure that well, to our point, the community doesn't know what we're doing, so to have more people understanding it in a little bit of depth would be helpful. Secondly, I don't know that the community trusts us on roads, and we seem to keep it very closed and very tight. So just opening up the information might be helpful. And I would imagine that at some point in time, we are going to have to make hard decisions. So if all of this scientific data comes back and 3 roads are in need of immediate repair, it's nice to have a group of people help us understand and recommend which of those decisions we should make. So I'm for it.
You know, I might be fine with something that's a little bit constrained than an open-ended committee too.
Like you said, a task force?
Well,
Or give 'em
like
specific-
maybe
Or roads roundtable?
something like that. I might be
Or a
open to
steering committee?
something that's not an open-ended,
I mean,
So
we
something-
can define it how we want
you know.
it to run. Maybe they aren't making, maybe they're making advisory recommendations to the council, and we ask them to help their neighbors understand what's going on and get feedback from neighbors. I mean,
I guess-
we can construct it how we want to construct it.
One thing, I guess I'm interrupting a little, but one thing I thought of was it might be a better committee if we insist on people being on it from different parts of the village, for
Absolutely,
example.
yes.
And not like,
All from one street?
well, that's what's gonna happen, right? You know, there might be, I'm willing to think about it a little more, I guess.
All
Or
right,
you get road board bosses?
Well, I
so,
have some concerns, but.
To discuss like Oak Ridge Court as far as like that group of residents, setting up a meeting to discuss the possibilities of repair for that one and what options there are. And the reason I'm suggesting that is because if we're going to be assessing people, I want to know what they, as a group, not just specific individuals,
Think about it, yeah.
are interested in.
this year, the puddling affects 5 residents, I believe. And those 5 homes were sent a letter, and their option this year is to have their ditches filled in or not. There was a lot, they didn't like it,
Sure.
so the city will fill them in, and then we're done with Oak Ridge for this year. The second cheapest, like Marcus said in our last meeting last month, the next option for that road is $200,000.
Well, yes, if we're going to be doing that, and those people are going to be assessed, I want them
Oh,
to agree.
absolutely.
As far as
absolutely.
like, then I'm all for a meeting regarding, this is what's going on your
Right.
road, here are the options.
That's right.
How do you want to handle that? Because
Exactly.
they're footing the bill. I don't want to,
Right,
I don't want to make a decision based on 5 houses for 40.
exactly.
And,
And,
oh, sorry. go
no,
ahead.
that's all right.
Nope, nope.
If we were going to, that's what I'm thinking too. If we go down the assessment route, every resident, whoever it's affecting, needs to have a say.
I agree.
Well, they're all
And
gonna
then-
join the committee.
Well, I would hope,
Well,
I
we
would
wouldn't
hope
need a
that.
committee, we would just need to communicate and have regular meetings with them, that's all.
Well, I was just gonna say, to me, it all still sounds like a communication issue. Like, everything you brought up, Bridget, sounds like we're basically asking residents to know all the facts and disseminate it for us. And it's like, well, if we're not doing a good job of that, that's on us. We need to figure out a better way, because what did you say, we hold that information close to the vest? I'm like, well, if that's the case, then we're doing something wrong, because I want all residents to feel like they have
It's
that
n-
information and the ability to access it.
I mean, it's not a bad idea to have some people look at it and criticize it. It's really not.
You know,
It's not.
You know, I like that.
And it's not, you know, I think roads are really hard to communicate about, you know, they're sort of boring. And unless it's right in front of your house.
Yeah.
But I just, I don't know, I just think having a group of people look at what's being recommended and give feedback about it, especially because it's the biggest spend that we have in the city, would be a good thing.
I would say I would be for it if it was a diverse group of people from all around the city and not just one street.
Well, how about you do something like this? How about you set it up? We have Marcus provide them a report, like maybe what we've got right here. You give them like 2 months, they can meet as much as they want, and they give you your feedback, and then we just have them come back on an annual basis and do that. And just review it, give us their feedback.
yeah.
To me,
Yeah,
that might be something that would constrain it enough so that it's, you know, so that they have a specific job to do. They feel like they'll be able to come back in a year, they can understand it, like, does that?
I think that's a
I
great
think
idea.
that might, okay. Well, I mean, I think we're kind of working through a couple of
Yeah.
different ideas to kind of hone this.
I just don't want it to be a waste of their time, that's all.
Yeah.
Well, the
I'd say
problem
once
is.
a year.
And if
you
we're
know,
going to have a committee, I'm going to take the recommendations, because
Well,
I
I
know,
know,
but
that's the
you're
problem,
not- you're-
right?
What's the point?
right, what's the point? If we're not going to take the committee's recommendation, why are we on a committee? So, I don't know. I'm fine with committees, I love the Parks Committee.
We are pretty awesome.
I know.
But,
So is this events?
well, that's one of those things where it's difficult because if we are going to be doing every single road, it is a very expensive process.
And
And every
timely,
road needs to be done, but everyone wants their road done first.
right.
As is the nature of it's against my property and I drive on it personally, so therefore you'd want that. But that's why I think the science-based of which ones are actually in the worst shape makes the most sense to do them. 'Cause I know right now, the road I actually live on is not even on the road projects. It's not listed. And the reason it's not is because it is one of the ones that is in the best shape, surprisingly. But as far as like the individuals who are right next to me, they're like, why wasn't our road on it? It's like, because actually it's one of the better ones. You should go and see these other roads and then it's fine. But as far as like, I do agree that we do need to improve our communication as far as informing people when a road assessment changes, whatever happens, and we're looking at the roads and decide this road isn't going, that I know we've put them in the newsletter, I know we've put them on the website. You can only supply the information and you can't really force feed people to read it. So as long as that is available actively and they could find that information, I feel like we've met the need
I
without
still think
requiring.
there's just great power in having a committee of citizens approve and support what we're
We're
doing.
assuming that they are going to. That's the part that's concerning.
And if they don't, then we need to understand why
Sure.
and have a conversation. But I'll support whatever. I made my pitch.
Okay, and I told you, I don't, I can go either way as well. I put a resolution in the packet in case you guys want to adopt it. If you don't want to adopt this particular resolution, someone can come back with one for next month, like if your annual
I'm not-
review, that would be
I'm
fine.
not okay with this one, but I
Okay.
would be fine with something, I think.
That's
And I
fine.
don't intend to do it myself. I work with somebody.
I'll work with you, Ryan.
Oh,
Okay.
I'll be happy to just leave it on the agenda. We'll just revisit it.
Yeah.
okay, I just wanted to bring it up for council discussion. You know, okay,
Yep.
all right, then we'll move on. Thank you.
You want me to keep it on the agenda?
For next month, yeah. Let's see, where are we now? Number 4, discussion of variance in CUP fees. That,
Mayor and council, that's on essentially at my request. I think I've dropped some hints in the past about the fees that are currently in place that go along with the escrow. The first time this came up was with respect to a variance for a new build, and I'll just say that the applicant shied away from even asking just because of the price. And so one could make the argument that that's good because it keeps people from asking for ridiculous variances because of the actual cost, but you don't know how many people who want to do creative things and want to actually invest in something. You know, it's going to have a chilling effect as well. And so that gets us into the next part, which is just the simple CUP process. And so, not talking out of school because the DeYoungs are here, because they've actually pitched a project for their yard that does, thanks to the way the code is written, require a CUP. You heard Ben mention it briefly. And the cost for that is $3,000, right? Plus the escrow. So, the escrow is refundable. It's normally designed to take care of any damage to public infrastructure. The $3,000 permit fee is not. So that's a hard cost. And when you're just digging in the dirt and moving things around like these guys are, that is going to have a chilling effect because it's going to affect your actual residents.
That's fine.
So I've really brought this up so that you guys can talk about that. There's no way that staff can actually take away from that or change it or modify it or anything. So those are just hard costs that people are really reflecting about whether or not to do things to improve their property.
So the question I have about this is I asked last month, and I think this plays into this, is how much have we billed in the past one or 2 years on city planner fees that we've recovered from residents, including out of escrows?
When I asked Therese, basically, the only one that was really at play was the one on Wildwood. And that hasn't been billed yet. That was the answer I got, which I know doesn't help you at all.
Well, no, it does help me, right? Because I think we're not currently billing out any of our planners' fees. And I think there are certainly discussions around.
I don't know if it's fair to say we're not. It's fair to say we haven't yet.
We haven't in the past year, at least.
Right.
But there've been many planning projects in the past year.
Not as many as you'd think.
Okay. I mean, how much did we bill, for example, for the Shifsky variance?
For the variance itself or out of the escrow?
How much did we bill? How much did we reduce the escrow to pay for planning services?
Well, the escrow's still in place because, of course, there were some
Okay.
parking issues and things of that nature. And so that's about to go back. It's in the claims because we went out and made sure that we don't need to retain any of that.
Okay.
So
And so
as far as
none of that is going to be retained to pay for the planning services that went into the Shifsky matter?
The escrow is really not designed to be held for that.
Well, then it seems like we should be having higher cup and variance fees.
We have those.
If we're not billing back our planner fees.
I'm not sure if this is the place to talk about that necessarily.
I don't understand why it wouldn't be the place.
Well, because where you're finding a problem, or where we're finding a problem as staff, is something as simple as a conditional use permit to do a very simple backyard landscaping project.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we're trying to solve a problem in an ineffective way in that, we basically came to an agreement with the city planner. I know Justin pushed on it in a meeting. It was basically Margaret arranged it, where we would bill back at a rate of $100 an hour to pay for planning services. And as far as I know, that's only happened in one case. And so I guess my concern is these fees relate pretty directly to that, and I think this might be informed. I'm fine with lowering the fees, but I think we need to kind of rectify the planner situation where those things aren't billing back, because to me, that's a fair way to do it. And I think I liked some of what I heard, which is we give people a little bit of upfront services, an hour or something, and then we kind of bill back beyond that. And I think we've tried to arrange that in the current case, and to me, I'm fine with lowering the fees, but I think along with that, we need to straighten out the way our planning services are being billed, if that kind of makes sense.
And I don't certainly think that's a bad idea, and I think you heard it pretty much collectively from the folks trying to come up with ways to save.
I mean, it's
That
been our
situation.
policy for years now. It's just that we haven't been able to, we pushed really hard in a council meeting to have this billed back to the city, and somehow that's not happened. And so,
To the applicant, you mean?
to the applicant, and so.
It just hasn't happened yet. And so I
Well,
think
3 years is enough time for that to have happened.
I haven't seen it.
It hasn't happened, and
And
so.
all I'm saying right now is that pendulum has now swung all the way to the other side to where it's now having maybe the opposite effect than what you want, which is people
Oh.
aren't investing in the city, and we have people here who.
I agree.
What are you guys trying to get done? What are you building? That's it?
Yes,
And how-
but it is,
Okay.
you know, it seems the smaller threshold.
So,
But we have, you know, well, I mean.
I'll just hand around the
consulted
visual.
with the, you know, landscape designer ahead of time to try to alleviate some of
I mean, I think the problem is. when
No,
it
hold
falls-
on, Hankins, I'm not done. So they're doing some landscaping, right? And our permit right now, I know some of it's escrow, but out of pocket, they're fronting what, $5,000? $3,000? Okay.
And again, council, I'm not necessarily even asking, and I don't think staff is recommending that you have to lower the actual fee. What I suggested last month, and I'm still suggesting, is I think most are willing to put it up as an escrow fee, with maybe some of it being hard to cover hard
Well-
staff time, but to draw for that, for those planning fees, instead of having it be a hard cost.
Problem is, you're saying that at some point in the future, we will actually collect planning fees, but we're paying out $19,200 a year to a city planner every year, and we're not collecting anything back in
Very true.
fees.
And if you have a year like this year where there's been very few permits taken out, that's a
Yeah.
retainer whether or not you get any of them taken out.
I mean, I agree, but I do think on Galatowicz, we should have seen something, and on Shifsky, we should have seen something, and we haven't.
And the answer that I got back was simply that we haven't.
We haven't
filed
done it
and
yet,
sent
I
the bill
know.
Because they haven't closed out their permits yet. And that's what I
They
understand.
should be
is the process.
billed, they have to be billed, they should be billed on a monthly basis, or it should be reduced by the escrow should be reduced on a monthly basis.
It's just not.
I know it's not, but like, but I'm not, I think I've made my point here,
Yeah,
thank
And I
you.
don't mind changing the process, but
But,
that's not our business
like,
process right now.
I think we need to, I agree, we need to reduce our fees here, I agree, and I understand. I
Or at least
also
make
think we
what
need
we don't
to-
use refundable. That's what I have a hard time with.
Well-
If we had to justify it, I would have a hard time with it.
How do we get that done?
A great
I think you make the fee an escrow, and again, I don't think anyone minds spending $500 or something like that as a hard
Okay.
cost, and with $2,500 towards planning and zoning costs, if applicable, and then when you close it out, they get a refund. You know, just like the other escrow is designed for damage to civic property, which is why it was set up, and a lot of cities have it. And if they don't do anything if their contractors rather, don't mess up asphalt, take out trees, do any of those things, then that goes
Yeah.
back to them.
But I do think we need to fix the situation where
Separate
things
issue
are,
though.
things
I'm
are
good with
not
that.
being, well, I'm not willing to lower the fees unless we get the other situation resolved.
I just don't
because-
think you have to. I think what you have to do is basically not make it a hard fee, because I just don't think
I'm
it's
fine
fair.
with that, but if we don't have the billing data for for what hours are being used on the planner, none of that can be billed back.
Correct. There are two different things I see them
I
as.
agree, but they're related. But I mean, I don't,
And we
I
have,
feel like I'm belaboring the point here a little
In this
bit, so.
particular case.
I've talked enough about this, but I'd like you to at least understand what the effect is.
Yeah,
We're
I
actually trying to do
agree.
something right now.
Right, it's gonna
I'm
be.
sorry, and, you know, I do think we need to probably resolve this
I
issue.
mean, we don't need to belabor it, but it's just very,
Well,
it's convenient that we have someone who'd like to do something, and I won't
I
got to
understand.
school when I say that they were a little surprised at what it was going to cost before they even put a shovel in the dirt.
I just want to say, one of the main reasons I'm on city council is because I tried to build a fence.
We hear about the fence.
So I understand your pain, so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm Amy DeYoung, by the way. Yeah, I mean, just with the upfront cost of, you know, 6,500 having to be laid down, you know, when that's, you know, 50% of our overall project cost, it's just a huge deterrent for residents to want to do something, especially when it's, you know, not a $100,000 project, you know, it's trying to make our our yard a little more usable for our kids. And just the like 550% increase over last year's fee of $460 seems just, you know, like Alan was saying, just a really intense pendulum swing. And I get what you're saying, some of those costs are recouped. That's why I'd consider, like, you know, definitely having some sort of permit fee. Everyone's gonna have that, but use that escrow for what you need for, you know, getting back some of your fees there. Just looking at neighboring cities, you know, White Bear Lake charges $800 with $1,000 escrow. Matamidi charges just a flat $250. So, I mean, just, it seems a little out of line to us, so. just
I
appreciate
mean, those cities, to be fair though, those cities bill back planner hours to the resident, and I think that's what we are, I mean, I agree with you. It's just, what I will say is it takes us a couple months to change the fee schedule, so I think we'll revise that. But I think we're also kind of evaluating how we're doing city planning too.
How have you handled that before when, like, you know, somebody comes already having, like, paid a landscape engineer for a plan versus just like a
mean-
hand-drawn, like, we're gonna carve out this little,
So generally, like 3 years ago or so, that would kind of go through. You would hopefully have a landscaper who would kind of looked at the city codes. Did your landscaper do that?
we had a
Or they,
separate
you know,
designer, and then we've gotten bids.
And if they do that, then it just comes in and goes right through. And the planner probably spends, you know, maybe an hour or two looking at that, and then that would just get billed back at an hourly rate.
Sure.
You know, we went to this retainer that I don't think has worked very well for the city. And now nothing is billed back, and so we're basically stuck with averaging fees out over permit costs. And as you see here, like a small permit, you know, because you're on the lake, like that gets expensive because that has to be a conditional use
It's actually
permit
not on
down
the
there.
lakeside.
It's within the shoreland area, I think. It may not be, it may be anywhere in the city that applies. But, you know, if we can move back to a system where we're kind of doing some hourly billing.
Can you take that money out of the escrow fund, you know, have your.
But we don't
levy
get,
and then
we
have
don't,
it be proportional to the scope
we
of the
could,
project?
but that's not something that we're not getting reports back of how many hours are spent on a planning project.
Yeah.
And so we need to get that back, and then we can start billing those hours out.
Yeah, and part of that is how many people are applying, like you said. How many people are actually applying for permits because of whether the projects can go through or not. So
How can we quickly fix this, Alan?
Well, the actual charges are cooked into the fee schedule, which is set by ordinance. And so there's not really a convenient way, like I said, for staff to address this without some direction from you guys. So if you tell us to bring you back some changes to the fee schedule in the form of an ordinance, we'll do that. If you tell us tonight that this is what your intentions are, and we've got an application, wherever I put it, oh, I handed it out there. We do have someone who wants to go forward with something. Just put the escrow up and hang on to the fee for now until you make a decision. We'd like to start processing the actual application so that they can get going on it. If you express your intent, then at least it gives them something to work with. And it's the only one that we have. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think there's one other one, but that's not really ripe or it's not in yet. And so this is the only one that they've actually, well, you can see it. It's
I will move to support moving forward with the application and encourage staff to do so on the condition that by next month, we have a full reconciliation of all hours billed by the city planner in the last 3 years.
Could you tell me the first part of that? I heard the second part.
I will move to encourage staff to move forward with getting the conditions or getting the conditional use permit moving forward, which I think is what you suggested. I would just like to see us look back and see what's actually been billed back to applicants in city planning services in the last, say, 3 years.
And I'm happy to produce a report like that. That would be more of an FYI.
Yeah.
I didn't hear a clear direction in the motion as to what we should do about the
What
fees
what
that
would
they
you
are right now.
recommend?
Well, from what I see, and like I said, last month to this month, 5,000 as a hard fee for a variance, not a escrow, but an actual hard fee that they get nothing back, and a $3,000 CUP fee, hard fee, with an escrow.
I
strikes me
mean,
as not
lower
very
it to, I'm fine with, say, $1,000. We have to, for a cup.
I would recommend, and this is just based on what I'm hearing from you folks, discern amongst yourselves what a good hard fee for our staff time is. This is myself, well, just hang on. Myself, Therese, Genevieve, the people that are putting this stuff together, let's call it $400, $500.
Yeah.
And then basically just do a straight billable for your planning and zoning costs, right? Just produce that and say, here's the bill, and give that to the homeowner. That's one option. The second option would be a hard cost to the permit, and then a little extra as an escrow for those planning and zoning fees. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, it's really critical to me. I'm fine with that. I would say just set a flat fee and don't worry necessarily about calculating the staff time. But
Well, the fee should be based on staff.
Well, it'd be some combination.
it would be, are you talking about just an overall fee based on staff time?
As part of it, yep.
So what would
So,
you,
A hard cost,
why don't you just recommend that to us?
that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
I mean, we have to start this conversation somewhere, and so we've got a great example of it, and so I'm recommending that, just like it was pointed out, they've got some hard costs, and then you pointed out, and they're also billing back in White Bear for the
Yep.
planning and zoning. We
Yep.
can do it that way, and it's just, here's your bill for dinner,
Yep.
or we can set up an
Well-
escrow. I don't think anyone minds putting $3,000 up to do a project, knowing that they're gonna get maybe $2,500 back if there's no extra staff time involved in reviewing the request.
Yep.
But 500 is for sure not coming back, and the rest, if we have to deploy our city engineer or our city planner, will be billed at X, and you'll get your invoice, right,
Yep.
showing what that is.
Yep.
And it's a deposit, right? You just get it back minus whatever the costs are.
I mean, the rate for the city planner is $100 an hour, which is
Whatever it
what
is.
we agreed with, and then
Same
the
with the
rate
city
for
engineer.
engineer is 165 or whatever his current rate is. And
So
I
the
think-
question becomes, do you
Yeah.
want a hard cost plus a bill à la carte, or do you want a hard cost plus an escrow cushion for those fees and services that can be drawn from? Those are the two choices, really, as I
I
see it.
guess I'm
I
kind
like
of
the
indifferent
escrow.
on that. I
I
just think
prefer
it's,
the
It's
escrow.
easy.
it's really critical to get
So-
the planner's fees for the last 3 years.
Well, we can-
I think
we
those
can
are
get
two
that.
different
Yeah.
issues.
They are two different issues.
So we're requesting
Well, hold
that
on.
report. You're
There's a
saying
motion
yes.
on the table.
Oh.
Can we get a?
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay.
if
All right,
we
can
wanna
you-
I will make
separate
a
some
those.
clarity.
motion. I would like to make a motion that the conditional use permit or the permit fees in general, as far as, I believe this is just conditional use permit, correct?
Yeah, one CUPs and the other is variance, yep.
Okay, so regarding the CUPs, that be based on, I believe you said your recommendation is $500 for is that going to cover the typical time that it takes?
I think it's reasonably aligned with what the average permit's gonna take for staff.
Okay,
You know, it's kind of state law that, you know, fees are supposed to be commensurate to the actual cost to the city. You know, and that's where this all started, right? Because, you know, it's hard to.
well, I know when we
predict
signed
planning
up for the current software, if you remember way back when, 4 years ago, that it was this is gonna save us so much money, and we just haven't seen that. So as far as, I know that was something that we wanted to look at way back when, and it was not saving us tons of time and such. So if $500 would actually cover the time needed by the staff, I would recommend that the CUP be adjusted to a $500 set fee with an escrow of up to $2,500.
Well, it shouldn't be up to, you should
Or
just
that
set it for what you.
$2,500 escrow that would be used for planning and engineer fees as needed.
So that's for the CUPs, so the same 3,000, but only 500 would be a fee.
Mandatory,
The rest would be escrow.
yes.
Sorry.
That's
Can I,
right. Yes.
can I get a second?
Oh, wait, do we want to add variances to that?
Do we?
Well, the variances is.
Variance is
currently-
5,000, so you do the
Well, we're
same
just
thing.
You
trying to
can't
fix
actually
this.
do this tonight. You have to pass this by ordinance. So we're
Right.
just
No,
making a
that's
recommendation. So just do it for both by the way Kathy
It's
said.
just a recommendation, right.
It's just a recommendation. We'll let DeYoung's kind of move forward and try to kind of get over the hump here.
But it looks like we
That's
also
what we
have
would
other
do for
fees
them,
that we
knowing that
potentially
that's
be
what's
editing.
coming up.
Knowing that's what's coming, and then you guys will you'll bring us an order to check the box and get it all tied, what do you say, belt and suspenders?
And later, and
In public.
shoelaces and everything else. I mean, we're talking about dog license fees tonight too, so that'll be another manipulation of the fee schedule. So we would hopefully knock out a couple of other things in that ordinance, because it's messing around with an ordinance, and then we gotta do that twice, and you know how that goes.
I'm good with that for variance as well. I do feel like if someone doesn't go through with their variance and they end quickly, it makes sense to get that money back. So I agree with that as well.
And some of them are very simple.
Yes, and I would also like to add in there, in Teresa's report, Marcus updated his fees. We need to update the fee schedule to include the 171 per hour for
Yeah,
engineering.
we'll see, but we know we've been given notice, so
Well, I'd
Yeah, throw it in
update it
there.
now while we're doing
we might
updating.
push back on that, but that's a different discussion altogether.
Okay, well,
Can we
That would-
push back on that? Seems like it's getting a little high. Okay.
anywho, so that would be my motion, that we adjust the fee schedule for that so that we can look
So
at the
that's
fee schedule.
2,500 and 500 for the CUP.
Yes,
the same-
and then the
Do the
variance,
same for variance.
I would do the
500 hard
500.
and the remainder,
Is 500 enough for your guys' time to do a variance? Because there's a lot more paperwork. Maybe 1,000?
I don't think there's a lot more paperwork. They can be a little bit more complex and more time-consuming, but that's usually on the part of planning and zoning. You know, the basic core function of the office is gonna be about the same time.
I mean, a cup requires publication, for example. I mean, there's some decent costs there, I think. And I think we also need to say, you know, we need to make sure that, I'm fine with,
750 or
a little
1,000 wouldn't be out of line for a variance, put it that way, and then you
No.
can
Well,
escrow
then I
out
think we
another
should do
3.
1,000 for the variance with the $400 escrow to be used for planning or engineer fees as needed.
$4,000?
4,000, you mean?
Didn't you say it's a $5,000 fee? So
Total
a $1,000
fee
solid fee plus an escrow of the 4,000
for planning and zoning,
for planning and zoning for the variance.
correct. And then we are leaving the actual escrows for.
The escrow would stay
protecting the
because
city
that is,
infrastructure alone.
that is for the insurance of not breaking the city.
that's right. Yeah, I agree with
So we need to
that.
keep that. But that's always been an escrow, so that's always a
I
possibility.
just want to give my gripes about the
I know.
protecting the city escrow. No
know,
one's
it's-
going out taking pictures of the condition the city is in before you pay that escrow. And it seems like it's a little wasted.
I kind of agree with you, Ryan.
I think it's for the big things that you can tell though, right? Like,
Well,
Well-
if that's the case, isn't there other legal
We
mechanisms
we
we
do,
can use?
right, I agree. We
Other than
can
an
assess
escrow?
people.
Because like, if I'm doing a project and I hit a water line, like the water main, like you're gonna know that, right? Like, if my curb falls off in Birchwood, it's probably because the curb just fell off. You know? So,
I hear what you're saying, and I will tell you, because I've been here long enough to know when they didn't do it, when the city didn't do it. And so what ends up happening is, after the fact, when contractors take off, someone will observe some damage, and it's clearly connected to someone's project. And you then go back, and it's not me, right? And all of a sudden, it's no one. And the homeowner says, well, I didn't do it. You know, maybe my contractor did, maybe they didn't. And so now you've got damaged curb, you've got damaged asphalt, you've got some damage to a piece of city infrastructure, and no one's there to fix it.
but the city doesn't know the initial condition of the,
Well, with the escrow, you go out, I mean, the Shifsky example would be a good one, where it was observed that stuff was being stored and, you know, it might have created damage, because by the time we noticed it, then it snowed, and so we wanted to see what happened, and so that escrow was there to regrade if we had to seed, to do all that. If we didn't have that, it'd be like, well, I didn't do that. So then you're stuck going and suing a contractor for whatever the value is for some seed or what have you. Doesn't really matter. So that escrow is really there as sort of a silent police presence, really, to make sure you're paying attention.
Can we, yeah, I agree.
And it's not an uncommon thing to have, so I think
Right,
it's
it's
reasonable.
standard operating
stuff, but I
procedure,
won't-
and
And I think it's having its intended effect. So people are being more careful.
You're not gonna talk me into it, Alan. I hate
They
it.
want their money.
Hey, Ryan, can we just move on with
Can you
this?
just put something reasonable in the next agenda and we can move on from
I
this?
took the notes, and I mean, this
Sounds
is the
fine.
direction that we needed to do something.
Did Kathy make a motion that we need to, I'll second whatever Kathy motioned.
I did.
I second.
What I have for the motion, and I'm not doing these anymore, so Genevieve has to figure this out, is that we are gonna simply manipulate the conditional use permit fee, the flat fee, to reflect an escrow of 2,500 and a fee of 500. And with respect to variances, we are going to keep the $5,000, but only 1,000 of that is a fee, and 4,000 is escrowed for other services, planning and zoning.
Let's,
And
And
that
we
we will
have
get a
to make sure
report
that they're
as
actually-
to what you wanted, because this started out, oh, no, I guess you retracted your motion. So we can get the data points that you wanted too, but
We obviously would need to make sure that we're billing
You just can direct
appropriately for the hours needed.
let's put the ordinance together and we can always go through it again.
Yep.
then.
that's the hard part. So that would be the motion, would be to manipulate those two fees,
Okay,
right?
we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2?
Opposed?
Kathy first, Ryan second.
Yep.
Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay.
All right, we'll be back.
Thank you. Thank you, the Youngs.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Ben?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to say, I have your fee schedule up here. And the CUP application right now is 3,000, and then under the escrow, it says refundable conditional use permit or CUP amendment escrow for permitting costs incurred by the city. And then under variances, it's 5,000, and then also 3,500 for the escrow, which says refundable variance escrow for staff review time incurred by city. So that's what we're talking about. It's not quite just taken
quite.
for that. It is also for that staff review time. So if that needs to be, like I was talking about, pass-through hours or something, just let me know that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take a look and clean that up too, obviously, and make sure that they're consistent, so. One should not be fooling around with the other. I
That's-
think they're two separate pockets of money. Anyway, thanks, council.
Okay, number 5 is discussion over the elimination of canine licensing.
I move to remove, or get rid of canine licensing.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I'm fine with this as an advisory. You know, I'm gonna do my usual Ryan thing, but I do think we should amend the fee schedule and recommend that we do that, and then I think we should take it out of the ordinance as well, that we require, I think we should also take it out of the ordinance where it says we require canine licensing. I'm fine with all that. That's all I want, is just to do, like Alan would say, belt and suspenders here, but I'm
Yep,
fine
I'll
with
do
the
that.
general, it sounds like the general thing is what I agree with, is to, I'll stop, I think I made my point.
No, you're good. So can we
So-
amend your
I,
motion?
I amend my motion, I move to,
Strike the language too, in the code.
Just-
strike the language in the code.
Well-
And the other thing I said before.
We have to, we'll pass an ordinance, I don't know if you want to do it, Alan, I can do it too, so.
Yeah, what we're
Can
gonna
we
bring
do
back,
it
I
going
mean,
forward instead of, like, I don't want to have to refund everyone.
No.
We won't refund anybody,
No.
it's looking proactively.
Right.
otherwise we'll have to like
Because
keep their
I know we're
dogs.
on year whatever, I don't want to be like, okay, next year everyone
No.
gets their money
This
back.
came up as a discussion when we were
Okay.
talking about redoing the website, and it's like, why do we even do this? So
Well,
that's what spawned
it's
it.
so silly.
I'm not sure why we
Okay,
do a
can we
three-year
just,
thing anyway.
we have an amended motion on the table. Would someone like to second Ryan's motion?
Bridget did it.
Yeah, I
Bridget?
did.
Bridget already did. So amendment, you're okay. Amendment, you're okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. In the interest of time, the connect,
Consent.
no.
Oh, we have
Number
number
6, the Birchwood Connections Committee met last night, and Kathy joined us as a representative from the community club. The part that Kathy joined us for was a discussion of the 4th of July parade. And Kathy, would you like to present what,
Sure.
okay.
So in discussing with the Connections Committee, the community club is still planning on helping with a lot of the parade in general and organizing that, as it's our 75th year. It's a big year for us for our parade. And the Community Connections Committee would be joining us as volunteers for that. But they had made the recommendation that the city help cover the cost of the permits for that, because it is our largest expense for that, so that we can use more of our funds for other. And because they would be eventually helping with running some of the portions, that it would be partially under the city.
Insurance or permits?
The insurance that we were required, the liability insurance from last year.
My understanding from League of Minnesota Cities is that a city-sponsored event doesn't have to pay for insurance.
That's right.
If
And
it's truly
so-
city-sponsored, the community club was not considered that, so we forced them to get a tulip
Yeah,
policy.
I think we should either make this a city-sponsored event. I think we should just make it a city-sponsored event.
How much is it? How much is the insurance?
Last year it was 900, but the woman said it would be going up.
I agree.
1,200.
1,200?
Yeah, it's certainly clean now that you've got an events group that can actually organize that.
Can,
Certainly very clean to be able to take the community club money and donate that to
Can-
the city to
can we
the
put,
cost.
yeah,
What was the question?
I guess, can we put a contract in place with the community club?
A contract, what would the contract be for, to do the
I
parade?
mean, I think in any case, the community club's probably gonna have to get insurance, and I don't think it's really appropriate for the city to pay for the community club insurance. I think the parade should be either a community club parade or a city parade. But I don't think the city should, any more than we should pay insurance for the dock association, that we should pay for insurance for another outside group.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, this seems like
Is there a way that we
strange
could just
ask.
transfer this parade to the city?
That's what we should
If the
do.
city does it, if the events committee, the connections committee does it,
They're not prepared to do that.
All right,
That's why it was
then
going to be a joint effort between the community club and the events committee,
And, you know, and also, I'm
connections committee.
concerned that it's not necessarily even legal for us, for us to pay community clubs insurance. Is that legal? 'Cause
well,
does
that's
that
why
mean-
we made them get the policy last year.
Yeah,
Because they were exclusively doing it, and it was hands-off really by the city. The only thing that the city did was basically allow the use of the streets effectively. In other words, it was solely owned by the community club. So you tell me what you'd like to do, and we'll make it happen, but
Could it be just like a joint venture?
Well, that's what we were hoping to do.
well, it would have to be
But then-
city-sponsored, and so again, I think it's okay. I don't think we need a contract with the community club if they're just helping out and providing some of the expertise and the history, right? As long as it's city-focused, and certainly the community club, like I said, can contribute some of the funds to help pay for whether it's porta potties
All the other
or
stuff,
whatever.
yes.
I'll have to look into whether or not such a joint venture, I guess you could say, would be something covered by the city's insurance, because I don't know. I just don't.
This might be semantics, but what's the difference of having it city-sponsored and not have to pay for the insurance, and the community club just volunteers to the city? Why is it organized as the community club doing it, and
the question is
the
what?
city volunteering for the, what's the?
It's an independent organization.
No, I understand, but like, let's really break this down, like, the parade, if the city does it, there's really not gonna be any difference between the community club doing it. And so if the city does it, the community club can just volunteer to the city to help, right? And
That's-
they're
They
not,
could,
correct.
but if the city takes it on, that would be this connections committee taking it on. And they are not prepared to do that parade at this point. They
Okay.
just started up.
Okay.
So they cannot lead it. The community club has to lead it this year. That's the issue.
And they would have to volunteer, staff and all of the things that they would do to the city.
Sure.
I think it could be a partnership. Can it be done in the next 2 months? I don't know, but I'm willing to look into it and see what we can actually do.
Can you find out if it's even legal for us? Well.
I think it's legal. I mean, there's a way to make it legal.
Can you
I think
figure
it's a
out
big year.
what
and
we
it'd be
do
nice
to make
get-
it legal? But to me, again, I mean, this community club is such a mess, but, we need to figure out a way.
Community club does really good work. That's what Ryan meant to say.
I'm sure.
That's what everyone heard.
I mean.
Anyway, what I'm hearing is it'd be nice to get out from under the yoke of having to to spend the money on an insurance policy
That's-
when that money could be spent on the celebration.
Yes,
That's right.
that's exactly right.
They
That's what I see as
also
my
have
job is figuring that out.
previously, they sponsored the warming house, they sponsored benches. It would be nice to spend that money in the community.
But I think there has
Yes.
to be an agreement there that that's what's
Exactly.
gonna happen also.
Right,
What-
because once you build, we'll just use the warming house as a good example, all right? Community funds, everyone built it, Jack signed off on it, it's perfectly fine. But then the keys to the place get turned over to the city. It's
Oh,
now a
absolutely.
city asset. If someone slips and falls, it's the city, not the community club that's on the hook for it.
Correct.
And
So
so
like when the,
historically, the parade has been
yeah,
solely driven by you guys, so it's not a city event, so
Mm-hmm.
the city's not insuring it.
yes, they want to do in combination so that the community club would be leading and teaching and adjusting so that eventually it can be handed over, is my understanding, but
Yeah,
that is.
and you've got the expertise to do it, so like I said, I just have to figure out the mechanism to make it happen.
And it is the 75th anniversary of our cool parade, which is pretty awesome, so and then the 250th anniversary of the country too also plays in there, I
Is
guess.
there any extra money with that 250th anniversary? Seems like money's being thrown around all over the
The
place for it.
extra money from like the federal government
Yeah.
or what? I have no idea
Maybe
regarding
worth
that.
looking into.
I
We
haven't
don't
heard
really
any
have
Grant opportunities relative to that.
I don't know of any for a
Haven't seen it.
parade, but we have the funds because we saved up enough to be able to afford this tulip policy if we needed to.
I think that, if the parade is billed as a city event and the city covers the insurance, I would like to see the community club come with what they're gonna contribute, aside from volunteers and
And cash
Knowledge.
for all the other things.
what the cash is. Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
wanna
we would
see
be
that.
covering all the other costs that we normally would have covered, so the candy and the donations to the scouts and, let's see, the balloons, the helium, all that kind of fun stuff that is involved that is.
So to me, the way we do this is you put a contract in place with the community club. The community club agrees to deliver X and get insurance. The city agrees to make X payment to the community club. And then, I had one other thing I was gonna say, but if we do that, fine, but basically an explicit contract in place between the city and the community club. Oh, and then also to say that this parade is in the public health and welfare and whatever is required, Alan, to meet the requirements for the city to expend funds, because that's one of the things I think we need to worry a little bit about here, right?
Well,
So-
Ellen, you'll figure it out.
we can doodle that a little bit, because I might just drop a contract and just basically, we'd contract with the community club for $1, right? To provide the services to do the parade, and it's then a city event, right? So I just have to
Sounds to
think
me
about
like
it a little bit.
we would want to contract for more than that because we want to pay their insurance. And
Well, it wouldn't be their
Well,
insurance, it'd be
no,
our
It
insurance.
would be
See what
our,
I
it
said?
would be covered under the city.
if it's covered under our insurance, my understanding is if it's League of Minnesota Cities, if we're contracted with them, they'd be required to get their own insurance again.
Well, that's what I need to figure out.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you another example of how we'd be contracting for the intellectual property of doing the parade, and basically that's what we're doing. So,
Hey, can you just figure it out, Alan?
This is
Trying.
Next month,
Yeah.
bring it to us.
I mean, last year at this time, or approximately, we didn't have a group within the city that was able to even kind of take that, and so now we do. So there wasn't really this question of how do we make that work, and now it's there.
Right.
But we'll have some sort of a relationship and try to figure out the best way to do it, and certainly what I'm hearing is the insurance piece is the biggest piece for the community club.
Yeah, it's over the budget of everything else, so. It doubled our costs for last year.
Homework.
And I think, well, we did cut back on some stuff last year because we're like, we don't have the funds. So it would be nice to actually put things back that were taken out.
We're gonna blow it all on helium. You know how much helium is now?
Yes, it's amazing. We did only do a third of the
Be
balloons. We
using
did.
it for balloons anyway.
All right,
From Hormuz, so.
so, when you guys have your meeting, I don't know how to word that. The city will contribute something. I don't know what to tell you.
We have a community club meeting on the 21st, I believe, in the evening. So Alan, if you have something drafted before then, if you can provide that, we can discuss that too.
Homework.
Thank you.
Thanks. The other thing that came out of that committee meeting, the Connections Committee, is they would like to have an ice cream social to kind of raise awareness of this committee being formed, and they would like to do it at 5 o'clock prior to the first music in the park on June 7th. They were requesting $350 for that from the city. And they were going to put out then a donation box to try to recoup some of that, to start, because we didn't give them a budget when they
Yeah, we didn't give them any
were
money.
put into place. So, this is an event that would cost them money, but like I said, they were thinking of doing donations to reimburse and then build up their fund for other events. So I don't know how the rest of you feel about that, and if you want to discuss it. But again, this is for June 7th. So, what say you? Anybody?
I think if we're having a group that's doing events, we probably should have some sort of way for them to be funded.
I agree.
I move to approve the $350 for the ice cream for the Connections Committee.
Me too. Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, we're almost there,
Will it be
friends.
down where
Yeah,
the
it's-
music will be?
It's going to be in the pavilion,
Oh, nice.
and then hopefully we'll get some crossover between the two, and they're gonna, part of that 350 is to purchase signs, and they're gonna stake them alongside the Music in the Park signs.
Cool.
So, they also have a survey that's going to be coming out to all the residents, the residents on the email address, but maybe we could post the QR code out here on the bulletin board for the survey, and then on the Thursday announcements and on everywhere. Just to find out what residents might be interested in doing. Okay. Consent agenda. I would like one thing pulled out, which is April disbursements. Anybody else want anything pulled out? No? Okay. With the exception of, what letter was it? 6, with the exception of 6, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Oh, seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. On page, I don't know what it is in the agenda packet, but it's page 5 out of 6 in the disbursements, April disbursements.
That's page 24 of your packet.
Okay, so I'm going down to Manship Plumbing and Heating. We are being billed for hydrant flushing and water testing, and I never heard back about whether Kathy's house was ever tested, even though it was on that list. And also, I don't know, wait a minute, and I don't know if all the hydrants have been flushed, because as far as I know, up by us, they have not been touched. So it looks like we're paying Manship Plumbing for those two services that I'm not entirely sure we have received.
And I can speak to, well, I can attempt to speak to both. One I know for sure, because I did ask the question about whether or not the hydrant flushing project is done. It is not, or at least it wasn't as of the end of last week. The presence of Kathy's house for purposes of water testing, that's a new requirement now from the higher ups, we'll say. And so that was because there used to be essentially one testing site, which was here, City Hall. And so now they want to test it at multiple sites, so Kathy's is going to be one of those places to draw water from.
Well, according to the records that we have, water samples have been submitted from multiple homes in this neighborhood, in this city. So I don't know how it's a new requirement. I'm unsure about that.
They've asked before in past years for people to come to houses to get samples. Is just
It
as
just
a
hasn't
stupid,
shown up.
as a
That's the
s-
part that I'm concerned
as a
about.
stupid question, do you have to go inside of a house to get a water sample? I would assume there's no access outside of a house.
Well, if
Well,
you
your
have a
faucet.
water spigot outside, but the
Well,
time
maybe
frame
that's-
of this
okay.
test was in winter and our water's turned off, so that was not done on the outside.
I mean,
And that's a great, simple question, and the simple
I don't
answer
know
was,
the
I don't know,
answer.
because I've never
Yeah.
participated.
I would assume you would go inside a house because you would want the sample from inside the house.
If it's about water safety, I would want it at where my kid was gonna be getting the water
Getting
from.
from the.
Oh, I don't drink from the same place my kid does.
Okay, I'm concerned about accountability.
Agreed.
Well, if you wanna pull a bill, we'll look
Yeah.
into it and get
Let's
back to you
just
about
ask.
what's going on. Again, I can tell you with some certainty that, as of last week, the hydrants weren't done being flushed. That is true.
Okay, and we're being,
So
Paying
why,
for
well, yeah,
that.
why are we paying for it before it's done?
Good question.
Yeah. How does, dumb question, but how do those bills come in?
on a
Just
piece of paper.
just submits an
with-
invoice?
Yes.
It's a submitted invoice, so I mean, it shows up in your expense list, so.
Okay, we can look into it.
Way above my pay grade, I don't look at all the bills.
Okay.
So, you know, if you pull one and you say, what are we doing here? I will ask the question,
Yeah.
right? If not, then this is how they get presented to you, and that's why you guys look at them and say, what are we doing here?
Okay.
Good.
And so that one's been pulled, and so with the pulling of that, the motion would be to approve the rest of the claims under.
So moved.
Agenda 6.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, who seconded
Wait,
it?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, motion passes. Do
Can
you
we go
want
home now, Mayor?
to, okay, just in your packet, there's a Washington County Sheriff's Report, tennis sanitation report, Lake Links equipment procurements update. Does
I'll be
it-
super fast, because
Yep.
the last three are really mine.
Yep,
Lake Links, very simply, of course, we have some money to spend down on Lake Links improvements, and it's been a while since we've talked about it here, so I thought I'd bring you guys up to speed. We have signs and sharrows that are actually sitting in the AV room that are waiting to go in, so those were delivered first, actually. I helped pull them off the truck, weigh it done.
Thank you, Alan.
The bike, yeah, that's the sign and the sharrows, and so the drinking fountain and bottle filling station is ordered, so that should be here probably within the next week or 10 days. And the last but not least would be the, I guess you'd call it a bike maintenance station. So that's a company out of Florida that we ordered that from. Those are manufactured in Missouri, and they're coming up, and so that should be here hopefully before the next council meeting. We'll be meeting with some contractors over the next month about putting pads out for the benches. And so that'll be done outside of any other road work or anything else, because they'll be far enough off the roadway that we can get those things going. And I just got a request actually from Mary while we were meeting here for putting in yet another order for, what was that for? That was for radar speed sign, something? Does that sound right?
Yes.
I run by those things every day.
So, I mean,
Radar
that's,
bikes.
the point is, it's progressing and we're starting to accumulate the equipment to actually do that work.
And we're ordering benches too, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Drainage issues, I just wanted to bring it up, just because a resident brought up, and this is down by Kathy's house. I'm not sure if it's backfilling or why the flowage is not working there, but I wanted to bring up that we'll be looking at that. I think you had a perspective on a rain garden that maybe has filled in, and so now water's coming into the road instead of going into the marsh. where it
No,
should be
Marcus
going.
repaired the curb there that was taken out to allow it to drain into the marsh. So when they repaired the curb, it then started flooding the road. So putting in a channel that would go to a rain garden to then go into the marsh would be a better drainage for that specific low spot.
Got it. I wanted to bring it up because it'll just be another one of those pieces that will be looked at as an area of concern. Last but not least, of course, it's an election year, and so I just wanted to make you guys aware that candidate filing starts May 19th, which is, you know, pretty short. That's next Tuesday. and then that'll run through June 2nd.
But only if we're moving up to like state representative, right?
Sure. It's just an FYI, because it's an election year, I thought you guys would like to know. So
Thank
that's
you.
it.
Position is open.
And I should
This
say
is-
too, congrats on the cleanup, that's another thing that I penciled in. We got a lot of stuff out of the garage, the cabana, if you wanna call it that, the little storage locker underneath the city hall
Cabana.
is
Just call it
almost
cabana.
completely open. So it's available for use for the Connections Committee to have wine tastings, whatever you want. But it's very nice, it's very clean, and we eliminated a lot of stuff. We had a 20-yard dumpster here, and everyone helped fill it, and I couldn't believe we filled it, but we filled it. And last but not least, Chris, can you give me the tree? So what's missing from this picture? Where you see the big puffy cloud, used to be
Granite
one of the
tree?
biggest cottonwood trees in
Yeah.
all of Birchwood.
The
So-
granite tree.
That is Danny Ware's on the left and Granic's on the right.
Nice.
And that's the top of Lakewood Drive. And up until yesterday, there was a very, very large tree there, and now there is not.
Fantastic.
Wait a second, how did that
Thank
get
you.
taken down?
Probably a
Neighbors.
chainsaw.
Who did?
That was Woodchuck.
Woodchuck? And who paid for it?
We all did.
We all did, out of the city's tree budget. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
so that
from
bill
last
came
year.
in, and that was
Last
about
year's.
$9,000 tree.
That tree was 9,000 to remove. Yeah, man,
was
that.
massive.
About an 85-foot tree, and that was, it's the stump's down as far as it can be.
Oh,
Just
that's
as an
nice.
FYI, this just came up today. Mr. Wera likes to grind stumps, so he was gonna get a stump grinder and do some work on his own, take that one out, and volunteered to do the ones along Wildwood when we
Nice.
took those trees out. And so just executive decision that I made, we're gonna rent the machine, and he's gonna take care of it, so I'll get a volunteer
Great.
waiver.
Perfect.
But he volunteered to do that, so we should all say a thank you to Mr.
Yeah.
Wera. So,
Thank you,
very nice.
Danny.
And-
Very nice.
Can I add one little announcement?
Nope. Madam Mayor, I'm sure would let you do that, so.
The community club for the 4th of July parade always has a grand marshal. We're going to reach out to our team to then have that posted on the website and the Birchwood Facebook page as well, just to ask for individuals to be nominated. The requirement is that an individual have made a large impact within the city or community or world in general. So if you have nominations for a resident who has been exceptional, we will accept those. So I'll have details for where you can send in the information, but please be thinking about that. It will be coming sometime before the next meeting.
Thank you, Kathy.
And if you need to do that, you can, when you figure out who to send it to, we can put that in village.
I'll put that
notes
all
and
in there.
People, all right.
Just watch for it. And I believe Genevieve will be taking on the newsletter in June. So any information for the newsletter will need to go to her by, I believe, the 21st of May.
Ideally, a
This has
little earlier
changed.
than that, so.
Oh, okay. Have it after the Parks Committee meeting, otherwise Zach won't
And
be able to
that's in
commit.
draft form now, and so we're probably gonna put that out in color, just so you guys know, just because it's a different format and whatnot. Last but not least, we'll be giving a beta run to the new website on Thursday. So that'll be in the morning. Staff will take a look at that and see how well it's running, so we're making progress.
Thank you,
It's
everybody.
not quite the new website yet. It'll be the
Well, not quite.
templates for the new website.
Where ideation is turning into.
Thank you,
Yes.
everybody, for your
Thanks.
work,
Step one.
all of you.
And Genevieve has taken on Facebook postings.
Yes,
Yes.
yep.
Nice.
And so to say that we're thrilled with her would be an understatement, so she's awesome.
And thank you. I mean, our staff is really good, really.
Well, Therese is really, yeah, she wouldn't tell you that, but she's the sun, we just kind of all orbit around her.
It's-
So
it's
I
good
can't
down there.
underscore enough how much she's been a treasure to your city.
Well, thanks for orbiting well too, Alan.
Yeah, all of you have, it's
Yeah.
been so nice to have a full staff. That's what I say, Ellen, every week. I'm so glad you're here. It's been a rough year and a half.
It's a privilege for all of us, I can say that, and I think Genevieve is very happy with what her choice was to come here.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Great.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Ryan, second. Kathy, all in favor? Aye. We're in adjourn. We're in adjourned. We're adjourned.